Well, should we start?
Sure.
Okay, well, I'm gonna first let Charlene talk. Do you guys know Charlene?
No?
Oh, okay. Charlene is the general manager for the, general manager, right?
And broker of record.
As I said.
For the company.
Yeah, and your broker of record, so anyway,
Someone will need to know.
she's a good one to know, so. But she's just gonna be here for a few minutes, wanted to just introduce herself and talk to you guys for a minute.
Yeah, I just wanted to say hi. I'd like to come in and see who's joining the company. You're joining Century 21 Troop Real Estate for the moment. In a couple of weeks, you'll be working for Century 21 Everest. Because we are in the process of our name change. It has been approved by the Bureau of Real Estate and the state of California, and now we're just waiting for Century 21 to give us their blessing, to say, yes, that sounds like a great name. And then we will have the same name as our sister company in Utah, which is where Russ is really based out of. So we're really excited about the name change because it really brings the two companies together and makes it much more cohesive. We really enjoy our relationship with the people in Utah. They have a great leadership team and their agents are amazing as well. Hopefully you'll have a chance to go to the 121 conference in March, which will be in Las Vegas. This is where all of Century 21 comes together worldwide. So we have people that come in from Argentina, and they come in from Japan, and all these different places. It's a big event, it's a lot of fun, it's really good education. So hopefully you'll be able to make it. That will be happening in March. This year, what will be a little bit different is, you know, as a part of Century 21, we're part of the Realogy Group. And Realogy owns several real estate companies. It owns ERA, Sotheby's, Coldwell Banker. And so this year while we're doing 121, Realogy is having all the companies come into Vegas. So at one point, all of their real estate companies will be together under one roof at MGM. So that will really be fun. I have a good friend who works for Coldwell Banker, and he said he arrives the day before I arrive. So one thing you'll find in this business is, although we have competitors at other companies, these people will also probably become your friends over time. We are countywide, but we are really a small community. So you'll get to know other agents at other brokerages and develop relationships with them over time, and it's really actually what helps make your business a lot easier when you have those relationships. So tell me what branches you guys are at. Thousand Oaks.
Ventura. Valencia.
Valencia. Right. I've seen you out there. Okay.
I'll be at this location.
Okay. And your name is?
Tony.
Tony?
Valencia.
Valencia. Okay, great. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to have you here from Valencia because that's such a great office. Cindy is now the manager there, and you've met her, talked to her, of course. She's amazing. And so is Fred. I mean, you couldn't have two nicer people in that branch, and I know that they're great at training, and they're gonna take you guys a long way. And Jeffrey and Emilio are here, and they're great too. So you guys all have great branch managers. Of course, I love Vicki, but she's out of town right now. We've not heard a peep out of her. I think that's what happens when you go to Honduras.
Yeah.
Oh, is that where she's at?
Yeah, and all she kept saying is, "Oh, I just want the monkeys to jump on me." Imagine anything worse, but whatever. And you're in Ventura. Great job, great up there with Kathy and Ralph. They do an amazing job as well. So do you have a mentor out there?
Yes, I forget his name. Porter is his last name.
Okay, Brett. Great.
I haven't met him yet though.
Okay, well, you will. Yeah, when you get through. This is really an important part of your training. A little bit over a year ago, or maybe two, maybe a year and a half, we redid the whole mentor program. Because what we had originally done, I actually started the mentor program years and years ago. When I was an assistant manager here in the Simi office, and then I went to manage our branch on Madeira Road for 12 years, and then I'm back here in the corporate office now as the general manager. But when we started our mentor program, a lot of it was contract based. And what I discovered is that you may not need a contract for a couple of months. And by that time, you have forgotten what the contract says and what the purpose of it is and all the ins and outs of it. So we redid the mentor program to bring it back to where I had originally started it. And where I originally started it was, I brought people in, they worked with me directly, and I taught them the business. We went out and got business. We went door knocking and we, called clients and we did all the things that generate business, which is why we have Russ here, because Russ is teaching you how to get business. If you never get business, you don't ever need a contract, so you don't really need to worry about the contracts, that'll come later. So I know you're gonna enjoy, I'm sure day one was great, because I know Russ is great. I'm Charlene.
My name's Ed.
Ed, and what branch are you at, Ed?
Ventura.
Oh, Ventura, okay, great, out there with Kathy and Rob, wonderful. All right, well, I'll let you get on with your day, but just so I wanted to introduce myself. I am located here, but I do go branch to branch. I'll actually be out in Oxnard at lunchtime today. And I'm sure at some point I'll come into your branches and see you. I'll check up on you and see how you're doing. All right, nice meeting all
Awesome,
of you.
thanks, Charlene.
Yep.
All right, were you guys ready?
Ready.
Yes. Anything exciting happened last night? Anybody do anything fun?
You wore us out.
I work. Hey, me too. Me too. Yeah, no, me too. Believe me, I get it. So, well, any questions before we get started today? None. Okay. All right then. Well, so I guess where I think we'll start today is I want to do a little bit of a review of some of the things we talked about at the end of the day yesterday. So, I'm trying to think where to start though. I guess probably let's start with this. Let me give you kind of the background. So, when I first got into the business, I remember I had gone to my manager and I had asked him, I had always just been the type of person that when I had a job, I would go to whoever the boss was and I would say, okay, tell me what to do, like get me going. And in fact, I remember I worked when I was in high school at a motorcycle shop where I would go put all the parts away. And I remember I would go into the manager and I'd say, okay, like I got all the parts put away, what should I do now? And she would go and, oh, come do this or that. She'd always find these little odd jobs for me. And one day I had gone in and was like, okay, now I'm done with that, what do you want me to do? And I remember she was like, can't you just like slow down a little bit and not keep coming and asking? Because I think she was like, I've tried to find every odd job I could think of for you to do, and I don't know what else to have you to do. So when I got into real estate, I kind of had that same process. So I went into my manager and I said, what should I do? And he said, all right, well, first thing is go put together a list of everyone you know. So I go out and I put together the list. I came back and said, okay, now I've got the list put together, now what should I do? And he said, now go send them a letter telling them that you've gotten into real estate. Okay, so I went and put together a letter, sent it out to all these people. I came back, now what should I do? And he finally, I think, same kind of a thing, just got tired of me and finally just said, look, if you'll go knock on doors 2 hours a day for the next 2 years, you'll never have to knock on doors again. And I was like, oh, all right, I'll do that. So then I was off on my own. So, but the other thing that he did though, is this manager sat down with me and similar to what we did with business planning yesterday, he took me through this process of saying, okay, how much money do you want to make? And I said, I want to make X amount of dollars. And once I did that, then he had this formula that we backed into that basically what he said is if you'll go make 50 contacts every day, then you'll make, which the number I wanted to make was $100,000. He said you'll make $100,000 a year in real estate. So I said, great, I'm gonna need to make 50 contacts every day. So what happened was there was a lady in my office, her name was Shirley. She and I started in real estate the same time, gone through training like what you're doing right now at the same time. And so she and I just had decided that we would meet in the office every day at 9:30. We would then go do some role play, and then we would get in the car and go drive out and go door knocking for about 2 hours every day. And my objective was to get 25 contacts every day, and then we would go back to the office, we'd go our separate ways for lunch, then we'd usually meet back up at about 2 o'clock and say, all right, let's get on the phone and make calls now, because remember I needed to get 50 contacts a day. So I was doing that and had been doing that for about a year, maybe almost a year and a half. And The problem was though, my manager had said if you would make 50 contacts a day, that I'd be making $100,000 a year, and it wasn't happening. And so I had gone to a training, and at this training, I had this trainer had showed me this, which, so let me draw this up here for you guys. That basically looks like this. This is the learning curve, or half of a bell curve, if you think of it that way. And what he did is he said, this is what the process looks like of getting your business up and running. And he said that breaks down though actually into a couple of different areas that look like this. So the first phase in this process of learning is the activities phase. And in the activities phase, what's going on is this is where for us we're learning how to fill out contracts, like Charlene was just saying, or we're learning how to get on the MLS, we're learning the scripts, we're sitting in class, we're doing a bunch of those things. Now notice in the activities phase, how much, if this was the money that you're going to make, notice how much money you make during the activities phase. None. Yeah, nothing, right? So then the next phase though is what we would call the contacts phase. In the contacts phase is where we start making contacts. So what had happened is my manager, when I first started, had said, okay, go out and make 50 contacts every day, so which is what I started to do. But remember, I wasn't making the income that I thought I should be making. And so as I was in this training and talking to this guy, and he brought up this, he showed me, he said, here's the problem. Now, let me pause real quick. This is the process you want to go through. So that's not, there's nothing wrong with where I was at. The problem was I got stuck in this phase is the challenge. Now, what happens though is when you look at this, if this is the income you're making, what happens in the contacts phase with that? Not much, right? I mean, there's a little bit of lift off, but there's not much going on. And that's what the challenge was I was wanting to make over $100,000 a year, but the problem is I was stuck in this contacts phase, which was here. And so what he said to me was this, because now remember, I was prospecting between 4 and 5 hours every day. So I was spending between 4 and 5 hours either out knocking on doors or I was on the phone calling. And I wasn't making to be honest, I wasn't even really close to 100,000. Like, I was doing okay, but that's it. I mean, it wasn't even close. So what he said to me though is, what if I told you there was a way for you to prospect half as much, spend half as much time prospecting, but double your income? And I was like, well, yeah, sign me up. Like, you guys would be interested in that too, right? So I said, yeah, tell me what to do. Well, that's when he then drew this up on the board and he said, here's the problem. You're stuck in the contacts phase, which this is part of the process, is we want to get out of this activities phase and into contacts, but we need to not stay in the contacts phase for very long before we go to the next phase, which is what we call the appointments phase. Now, in the appointments phase, notice that's the steepest part of this learning curve. So if this blue line here is the learning curve, that's the steepest part. But also notice that like once you get into there, what happens? A dramatic increase in what happens, right? And so what he told me is, he said, we need to get you out of this contacts phase and into the appointments. Meaning, now, as we're going to start talking today about prospecting, and not start, we're going to continue talking about that from yesterday, but the first thing that I want you to realize from this is what was going on to move me from this phase to this phase was when I was going out prospecting in the contacts phase, what am I focused on? Yeah, so say that again.
Just getting the contact.
Yeah, just getting contacts. So I was out knocking on doors, calling people on the phone, and as soon as they answered the phone or the door, all of a sudden I had a contact, and that was good enough for me because I felt like that's all I needed. So my focus, so the first thing for your notes when in generating leads is you need to have focus. And what do we need to focus on?
Getting an appointment.
Getting an appointment, not a contact, right? So the problem was I was focused on getting contacts, not on getting appointments. And what he said to me was this. He said, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to quit focusing on 50 contacts. Now, even though I'm saying that he told me to quit focusing on 50 contacts, I still kept track of my contacts. So I was keeping track of my contacts, but I wasn't focused on, I gotta get to 50. Does that make sense? So that's what I'm saying, the focus changes. I still kept track of how many contacts I was making, but my focus was on getting an appointment. And so what he said is, instead of everyday prospecting until you get 50 contacts, instead, here's what I want you to do. I want you to, tomorrow when you prospect until you get an appointment. Now, the difference of that is, if you get it in 2 contacts, great. If it takes 100 contacts, you do 100 contacts. So you don't quit until you get an appointment. And I was like, okay. And he said, so what I want you to do is for the next week is just prospect every day until you get an appointment. And I was like, okay. But I think he could tell I really didn't get it, because he said, no, like, you can't go home until you get an appointment. And I was like, yeah, I get it. And he said, okay, I just want to make sure you understand what I'm asking you to do. Like, you go home tonight, tell your wife, I'm not coming home tomorrow if I don't get an appointment. And I was like, oh, like, you really have to get an appointment. He's like, yeah, no, you don't get to go home. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to commit to that. Now, because remember, I was doing 50 contacts a day and not getting very many appointments. So now I'm all of a sudden like, whoa, you mean I can't go home if I don't get an appointment? And he said, like, it's worst case, it's a week. Like, you have to stay at the office for a week if that's the worst that could happen. I was like, all right, I'll do it. Now, if that was you, if I said that to you, like, you can't go home tomorrow until you get an appointment, what would you do differently in your business tomorrow than you've done so far? Okay, but how? What are you going to do differently, though? I agree with you.
Be more focused in getting up the appointment rather than getting contact.
Okay, but give me specifics. Like, what
Learn
was?
the skills to get
Have a
an
different
appointment.
approach than what you were doing before.
Okay, say more about that, Tony.
Probably, if you weren't getting the appointments before, then you have to reapproach your script probably, and how you're gonna go about getting that appointment.
Okay, good, love it. That's exactly right. What I changed is, and key thing with that, I had to change my approach. I love what you said there. I had to change my approach. Now let me show you what I was doing. I was using the same script that I was using before, but this is what it would look like. So if I knocked on Trudy's door, knock knock. Hi, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21. We just listed a home over here on Birch and Pine. It's got 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and I just wondered who you know that would want to move into the area.
No one at the moment.
Okay, well, so when do you plan on moving?
I don't.
Oh, you don't plan on moving? Okay, well, do you know anybody else thinking about buying or selling?
Not really.
Okay, well, all right, we keep my card? I mean, that's basically what it was. That was my, because in my mind, when I was trying to get contacts, when I was focused on contacts, meaning I'm working until I get a contact, as soon as she opened the door and I could say I'm with Century 21, I could put a tick mark and be like, okay, I got an appointment. Does that make sense? Now, so I had to change my approach. So now notice now let me show you, once I switch to I gotta get an appointment and I prospect until I get an appointment and I don't stop. Let me show you how I change my approach. So now, I knock on the door.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Russ with Century 21 and we've got your neighbor's home over here, the Jones, listed for sale. Do you know them?
Yes.
You do? Oh, okay, perfect. So I'm sure you're aware they've got a job transfer, they gotta leave, so we're just out trying to find a buyer for them. Wanted to give you a chance to pick your neighbors. So any idea, anyone thinking of buying or selling?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay, don't know. Okay, perfect. Well, I appreciate you thinking about that. So when do you plan on moving?
I don't.
No plans to? Okay, perfect. Well, how long have you lived here?
5 years.
5 years. Wow, that's great. Good for you. Where did you move from?
Just across town.
Just across town over here? Oh, perfect. Well, how did you pick this area then?
Schools.
Oh, the schools. Yeah, they are really good schools, aren't they?
Schools.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, hey, let me ask you, if you ever were to move, where would you go next?
I'd probably stay in the area.
Just stay in the same area. Okay, perfect. So when would that be?
I don't see it in the foreseeable future.
Nothing in the foreseeable future. Okay, well, hey, let me ask you, how are you using real estate to plan for your financial future? Like, plan towards retirement and things.
I haven't really done that.
Okay, is that something you would be interested in learning more about?
Yeah, I would.
Okay, well, so when would be a good time? You and I could get together, we could sit down and talk a little bit about what it takes to buy investment properties and get you up to speed.
Maybe in the evening, one day next week,
Okay, so, let's see, would 5 o'clock work for you next week?
5:30.
5:30, okay, on Wednesday?
Wednesday's good.
Perfect. So now, what did I change?
You asked for an appointment.
Okay, good. So yeah, so part of it is which we're gonna come back to that in a little bit, is you gotta ask for the appointment. But what else did I change?
You changed the line of questioning.
Right.
Okay, good. Say more about that. Ed.
You were more positive about, instead of just accepting a no, and then moving to the next question, and a no, next question, you kind of delved into what the response was. And then you had an alternative question.
Good.
If it didn't go in this direction, you had an alternative
Good.
question.
Yeah,
You moved
perfect.
from moving to investments.
That's right. Now, and in fact, somebody asked yesterday, I don't remember who it was, I think I took my page down and had that written. Nope, I didn't. Somebody had asked yesterday, I don't remember who it was, about, oh, maybe it was Ed, about why would we have 247, only intend 120? Now, this is back to that, to answering part of that question, is this would be a scenario of I'm setting an appointment, but I may not end up going on that appointment. Meaning like, I'm gonna wanna qualify her a little bit more before I come out to that appointment next week at 5:30 to find out, does she have a down payment? I'm gonna try to find, so when I'm saying pre-qualify, I don't necessarily mean like financially, but that's part of it. So I don't just mean financially pre-qualified, but that would be part of it, is because if we find out prior to that appointment next week that, hey, this really just isn't gonna work because she financially can't do it, or just whatever, that doesn't make sense, I probably wouldn't go on the appointment, even though I set the appointment. Does that make sense? So, part of the magic in this is setting appointments. I talked a little bit about with the open house stuff yesterday, of saying if you got 6 appointments, one of them we will do a deal with. They're the same concept with this, is if you could get 6 appointments a week, if you could set 6 appointments a week, recognizing that really, you're not gonna end up going on every appointment. Either they're gonna cancel or you're gonna cancel because they're not motivated or whatever to do it. But there's magic in getting the appointments. Like, set it another way, you could set up 6 appointments with the wrong people and accidentally do a deal. Does that make sense? Meaning like, if you will set one appointment every single day, then what's gonna happen is you'll set an appointment with somebody on accident to do a deal. And I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but I want you to just see, there is magic in setting 6 appointments a week with people. By doing that, you will do deals, and you'll do them quickly. Even though, recognizing, like, I keep coming back to this, because I don't want you to be disappointed when half of them fall through, because that's just what's gonna happen. But notice I got an appointment with her on the second time. I could have the first time, but I didn't ask the right questions. I didn't get into it enough to really make that. Does that make sense?
So I just want to share, I went door knocking and I used that exact script.
Okay.
And so I was talking to the wife, and the husband jumped in and said, well, you're asking us a lot of questions.
Okay.
So it's like, I'm sorry, I'm just doing my job, that's what we do as real estate professionals, and I'm so sorry for bothering you, and thank you for your time, and I just left.
Okay. So now, I actually am going to come back to, well, maybe we'll
Because,
do it
yeah,
right
what
now.
could she have done with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Well, so, okay, so let's talk about it. I was thinking I'd wait, but we'll do it right now. Okay, so I'm gonna answer the question, but I'm gonna take a long way to answer it for a second, but it's good. It's a piece I was gonna cover anyway. I'm just gonna cover it now, and then I'll answer the question, okay? So, UCLA did a study. In this study, what they found, and they were, well, let me back up. What's your job?
Leader.
To be a leader, right? So Tony, since you weren't here yesterday, that's our mantra for right now. Your job is to be a leader. So when I ask you, what's your job? I want to hear everybody saying to be a leader. Now, and then there's a second piece to it. What's the #1 skill that a leader has? Communication. Okay, so UCLA did a study on communication. And what they found is this. 7% of communication is the words we use. 38% of communication is the tone that we use, and 55% of communication is our body language. Right? So, now, so I'm working towards answering her question to help you guys with what caused that. Because that's not going to be uncommon if, I'm trying to think of the nice way to say it. It's not going to be uncommon if you leave a few things out, is probably the best way of saying it, to get that type of a response. But I'm going to help you with how to not get that type of a response, to where they aren't going to feel like, how are you asking all these questions, okay? So, but in this study on communication, what they found is 7% is the words we use. Now, so a lot of times people will say, well, I don't know what to say, or I need a good script, or whatever, and I want you to see that in terms of communication, the words that we use are the smallest, least important piece. Now, with that being said though, that 7%, and we're going to come back to this probably tomorrow more, but that 7% is still very, very important, and I'm going to show you what I mean in 1 second. But 7% of the communication is the words that we use. So the script that you use is not as important as the way you use it, the tone that you use, and the body language that you use when you're using it, when you're using those words. Does that make sense? So the words that we use are not important, but at the same time, I don't want to discount them because they're hugely important. Let me show you what I mean. Let's assume that I'm sitting down talking to my wife. Does the word I use matter if I say, you know, I really hate you? When what I mean to say is I really love you, but does the word make a difference? Yeah, so now keep in mind, even though it's only 7% of our communication, the word's still really important, because if you said, I hate you, when you meant to say I love you, it can create a problem, right? But now watch this. Watch what happens though, the tone that we use makes a bigger difference. So let's say I got the words right now, so I know I need to say I love you to her. But if I say, I love you, I got the words right, but what happened?
You said it as a question.
Yes, notice the tone that I used changed what the meaning of what I was saying. Versus I love you, I said I love you. And notice how the tone, so notice that the words are important, but the way that we use the words is more important. So part of when Carminda's saying, the guy's saying to her, well, why are you asking? These are a lot of questions. Like part of what he was saying is, my guess is, and I don't know, we can role play it and see, but is part of the issue was probably the tone you were using with them, or there's another piece to it too that I think is more the case than this, and I'll show you that in a second. But the tone that we use is hugely important, and then the body language. Now, I went almost 2 years ago. Tony Robbins did his Unleash the Power Within down here at the LA Convention Center. I went down to that Unleash the Power Within. And on day 2, he has another guy come out and talk. Well, when they announced the guy and he came out on the stage, now I'm going to show you how he used body language to communicate, and how the body language he used means more than anything. Is he came out on the stage and everybody's clapping and he goes like this. All right, guys, sit down. No, really, stop. What did we keep doing? So everybody's clapping. He's like, okay, guys, take your seats. Stop. No, go ahead, please stop. Sit down, guys. But because he was doing this, what's the message we were getting? Give me more. And they did. Everybody. So your body language says more than the tone, and the tone says more than the words. So all of these things are hugely important. The words that we use, the tone we use, and the body language. But realize that the reason if you go door knocking, you're going to typically be more effective than over the phone is because you can implement the body language. They can read what's going on. Another book, I actually didn't enjoy reading this one as much, but it's some good information, is What Every Body is Saying. So not what everybody, but what every body is saying, meaning it's all about body language. The guy that wrote it was I gotta look it up for you again. He was like an FBI interrogator, and just so the whole thing is like just what he learned about how body language, reading people's body language and stuff. So let's see where. Joe Navarro, Navarro, is the guy's name. So, little things, just like the way that somebody's, like, for instance, if I'm talking to you and you ask me a question and I go like this, what am I communicating?
You don't understand.
Yeah, I don't understand, or I'm confused or something, right? So notice just what he talks about in that book is little micro expressions from your face people pick up on. So that can be good and bad, I guess is what I'm saying. But typically if you are in person with somebody, you're going to be able to communicate a little bit better because you have the body language. So when you're on the phone, these two, since you really have less than 45% to rely on, especially on the phone, you got to really improve those skills of that. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, so that's the first piece is, now remember, I'm working at answering the question. The second piece to this is, in terms of just our communication, so this is one piece of it, is the words we use, the tone, and those type of things. The other piece of it, though, is going to be, there are three things that have to happen every time that you are prospecting. So when you're prospecting and you are trying to get appointments, there's three things that have to happen every time. The first is you've got to connect with them. The second is you've got to create value. And then the third is we have to close. Okay? So here's what was going on. So when you asked the question of like, or you said the guy asked you, like, why are you asking so many questions? What goes on with this? Now, when we are prospecting to set appointments, which that's the whole point, right? Is our focus is on getting appointments. We've got to connect with the person, we've got to then create value, and then we've got to close. I'm going to make a little bit of a bold statement to you. Anytime, every time, you are in contact with somebody on the phone or knocking on somebody's door, and you don't get an appointment, it is 100%. The reason you did not get an appointment 100% of the time is you either didn't connect, you didn't create value, or you didn't close. Every time. So, meaning, like when I said here I was doing 50 contacts per day, and I brought up saying that like I wasn't getting very many appointments, when I talked to those 50 people every day, the reason I wasn't getting appointments is I either wasn't connecting, I wasn't creating value, or I wasn't closing. Now, so part of what I think happens is when we are out, when we get that response of, why are you asking all these questions? That is the client or customer's way of trying to tell you, we haven't connected. Or, I don't see any value in what you're doing. So how do we create the connection with the people?
Find a commonality.
Okay, good. I like where you're headed with it. Part of how we're going to do it is through the words that we use, the way that we use those words in our body language, is how we're going to connect with those people. So we have to connect with them. Now, there was a difference in how I talked with Trudy that second time than there was the first time. And I don't know if you guys were paying attention at a level to notice, but did anybody pick up on what I did differently the second time than I did the first?
You were kind of leading the conversation.
Okay.
You seemed more dynamic.
Cool. Okay. Good. Yeah, you're right. But why? You're exactly
Because
right.
you had an agenda. You had a plan. You had something that you wanted at the end.
Okay. Good. I love it.
The first time it was more just about you were kind of making a face-to-face connection with her, and the second time I felt like you had an agenda, you had a plan, and you were going to get to that.
Okay. Good. Love it. Yeah.
I think your tone was different. I think you approached it with a totally different tone coming out of your voice.
100% for sure. Good. What else?
So I noticed that she was, calm. So you mimicked the personality.
Good.
And then
That's what I was wanting you to start to notice.
Yeah, and then you provided value and you got her interest.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I'm going to replay what I did the first time. So now watch the difference. So knock, knock. Hi, my name's Russ with Century, I'm gonna kind of fast forward it a little. My name's Russ with Century 21, we listed your neighbor's home, and just wondering who you know that wants to move into the area.
Nobody,
Nobody, okay, and when do you guys plan on moving?
we don't plan on
Okay, like, now what am I doing?
that. You just say go and approve. It's scripted, you don't care. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, see, that kid is not enjoying his haircut. He's going,
Screaming the whole time.
it's so, at first I was like, what is going on? And I remember it's a barber shop right next door, and I'm guessing the kid's getting like his first haircut or something, I don't know. So, anyway, back to this. So, yeah, that first time, there was no connection. I didn't connect at all. Like, all I said was, you know, we got this home listed, who do you know that wants to move into the area? Nobody. Okay, well, when do you plan on moving? I don't. Okay, like, there's no connection, so why would she want to talk to me? She wouldn't. So, in her mind, it's like, yeah, whatever, get out of here. Versus, this is what changed the next time. Now, pay attention. So, knock, knock.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Russ with Century 21. We've got your neighbor's home, the Jones down here listed. Do you know them?
I do.
You do? Okay, good. So I'm sure you're aware that they got a job transfer and they got to move. And so we're just out trying to see if anybody wants to pick their neighbors. Any ideas of people thinking of buying or selling?
I can't think of anyone right now.
Okay, well, hey, I appreciate you thinking about that. What about you? When do you plan on moving?
I don't think we're gonna move.
No plans to move, really? Okay, well, great. So how long have you lived here? Okay, so what am I doing differently
You're
now?
making conversation, and you're
Conversation.
showing an interest.
Because in essence, I'm using the same script,
Yes.
right? So what am I doing different? Say what you just said again.
You're having a conversation with me.
And then-
you're showing interest.
Yeah, notice that's what's going on. Now, what am I doing that's making her feel like I'm showing interest? What am I doing that's causing that?
You make it more personal, that might, you want to pick your neighbor.
Okay, good, yeah, love it.
You're making eye contact.
Making eye contact, good.
You're warming up to her.
Okay, good, I love it. Yes, I am.
It's the inflection on your voice.
Say more about that, Tony.
Well, basically, your voice is more engaging, and so it sounds like you're legitimately interested in what she has to say.
Yeah, now, here's the thing. So yes, you're exactly right. So I'm using the tone that I'm very interested in what she has to say. Here's the thing. The number one human need that we all have. Now, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first thing he would say, we all have a need for food, shelter, clothes, all that kind of stuff. But beyond that, our number one need that we have after that is acceptance. All of us, every one of us, our highest need that we have beyond food and things like that, the physiological, is acceptance. And maybe even to some extent, even the acceptance over here, some of the physiological things. But number one need that we have is for acceptance. So the key thing you've got to do is we have to be repeating and affirming. So for your notes, like the first thing I said you got to be doing is you got to have focus on getting an appointment, right? Once we have the focus on getting an appointment, one of the next things we need to be doing is we have got to connect with the person. So, and the way that you're going to do that to connect with them is we have to become engaging with them, meaning the number one human need that we have is for acceptance. We want to be accepted. We want to be right. In fact, I was reading something not long ago that said, I wish I would have kept a copy of this, because I kind of read it and didn't really think about it until one day I was standing up in class training and I was like, oh, that's how that relates to all this. And so then now I'm like, I can remember where it's at. But all of us think that eventually everyone will figure out we were right. On everything. Like religion, politics, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is that you think, we all believe that eventually everyone will figure out we were right. Whatever it is. And all of us think that. That we eventually think everyone will figure out that we were right all the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and so
confirm
that eventually you will be right. I love it. That's, yeah, but so because of that, when we are prospecting, we have got to make the person right. So my guess would be, so now I'm finally getting to answering your question, okay? I told you it was going to take a minute to get there. But when they say to you, you're sure asking a lot of questions. that is their subtle way of saying to you, you haven't connected with us. And the way that we want to, what we need to do to connect with them. So what I was doing, when you guys are saying that like I was more engaging with her, I cared more about her, the only thing I changed within that is the way I was using, so I added a few words, but more important is the way that I was using those words. And so what I did, so for your notes as well, as part of this connecting with them, is what you want to put down is we got to repeat and affirm. So we need to be repeating and affirming. So when I said to her, who do you know, well, so let me have you back up for a second. Part of what I did by saying, hey, we've got your neighbor's home listed, the Jones, do you know them? That is kind of bringing a, yeah, I know who they are. Oh, okay, well good, then you're aware that they're, like, I turned it more into, they need your help. It's not about me. It's, they're selling their home and they need your help. It's I didn't say that, but that's the message I delivered. Does that make sense? Oh, good, so you're aware that they've got a job transfer and they need to move. Who do you know that would want to move into the area? See, that turns that message into, well, who do you know that could help me get a paycheck, to, we got to help them get their house sold, and who do you know that could help get that? Does that make sense? So that's one thing, is I've turned it from being about me into being about them and her being able to help them. Does that make sense?
Almost like you have like a valid request of me.
Yeah.
Like you're not just knocking on my door, give me a.
That's right.
You're actually including me, and it's valid, you know, it's a real request.
That's right. Yeah, it's not about me trying to get a paycheck. And what?
I'd be more inclined to.
Yeah, she's going to be more inclined to talk to me. Now, the other thing though is now once I've done that, then as she responds to me, and I said, so who do you know that wants to move into the area? And you said,
No.
no. Then I want to repeat back, no one. Okay, great. Well, I appreciate you thinking about it. So I'm repeating and affirming. No one? Okay, great. Well, I appreciate you thinking about it. So let me ask you, how long, or no, then I said, when do you plan on moving?
I don't.
No plans. Really? Now, what's the message that I send with that? So I repeated, so no plans to move. And then I said, really?
You questioned her.
Yeah, it's more of kind of, now it's in a nice way, but I'm almost trying to plant this seed of like, well, maybe I should, so that she should be going, oh, well, maybe I should be moving? Does that mean, remember I told you yesterday, I was kind of like this, it's these Jedi mind trick kind of a things, it's kind of what it feels like, but by saying, so no plans to move, really? No, we don't have any plans. Okay, well, so let me ask you, how long have you lived here?
5 years.
5 years. Now, notice, on that, when I say 5 years, the challenge, the biggest struggle that I see with agents in general with doing this repeat and affirm is that they want to do this. So let me redo it. So how long have you lived here?
5 years.
5 years, great. So, like, is that exciting? Oh, 5 years, that's great. Versus watch this. Watch how I did it, and this is where I think the key of what can get that connection with the people is, so how long have you lived here?
5 years.
5 years, really? That's awesome. Like, now, I'm exaggerating it a little bit now, but notice like my facial expression goes, really? 5 years? Wow, good for you. Like, how does that make you feel when I do that? In fact, if you watch her face, watch. So how long? But that's what, notice what it makes her want to smile when I go, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So why is it making you smile?
I don't know, because you're smiling.
Yeah, but not, good, thank you, which is another piece. You should be like, look like you're happy to be there, not like, oh, 5 years.
You gotta get through this.
Yeah, I gotta get through this stupid script and try to get a dang appointment, because Russ told me I gotta get appointments. Yeah, I can't go home. I haven't been home for 3 days because I haven't got an appointment. So. Like, you can't do that, okay?
I wonder if we'll have time to role play with you, because.
Yes.
I'm
We are going to do that in just a few minutes.
Yeah, I'm curious, well, and maybe that's when that'll come in, but I want to know how you would respond to someone that's like, why are you asking me so many questions?
Okay. Go ahead.
Because they kind of were not liking what she was doing.
Yeah. But the reason they were not liking what she was doing, and I don't know, like, even with everything I'm saying, she may have done everything perfectly, exactly right, and some people are just jerks, and so, yeah. Like that, so to some extent, so I don't wanna, I am not in any way trying to say she didn't do a good job. But what I found is usually the agents do not get the tone and the body language involved in, oh, you're kidding. So over the phone, because we don't have the body language, you really have to exaggerate. So like if I were on the phone with her, so let me stand where you can't see me, but you guys can. I would be like, so how long have you lived at this address?
5 years.
5 years, you're kidding, that's awesome. Like, I gotta get it a little more engaged in what I'm doing so that it'll convey through the phone, because the phone, think of it as the phone waters it down. So you gotta be even more animated over the phone so that that body, like you gotta, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Like, now I wouldn't do that in person. I would be like, oh, that is so fun. You know, like that's gonna be weird if I did that, right? And then they are gonna be like, oh.
Shut the door.
Yeah, shut the door. So does that make sense? But we've got to connect, and the way that I'm going to connect is through that by giving them the feeling of hey, you're a good person and what you're doing is right. By me, watch. How long have you lived at this address?
5 years.
5 years. That's awesome. I mean, she can't help but smile when I do it. Like, when somebody's gonna smile when you do that, do you think they're gonna be like, why are you asking all these questions? They're not, right? Because why? I'm validating her.
Yeah.
The number one human need we all have is acceptance. I'm accepting her, telling her you're good, you're right,
You live in a great neighborhood,
Yeah.
you're so lucky.
everything, yeah.
For 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I go to the next question. So, where did you move from?
And, across town.
Oh, just across town to here. Really, that's awesome. Like, think of it as like if you were sitting down with a friend that had just gotten back from a really cool vacation, and you were like, Laura, so tell me about your trip. I'm so excited to hear about it. And then they start telling you like, oh, you're kidding. You got to swim with dolphins? Wow, that's awesome. Like, how does it make you feel when I do that?
That you sincerely care and you're
Yeah.
engaging.
That's the secret to this, is to getting people to want to engage and talk to you is be interested in them.
Right.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, you have a question?
Not really.
Oh, I thought you were starting.
I was just gonna say, the husband was behind the door. I was just talking to the wife.
Oh, okay.
He was behind the door.
He
Okay.
was being difficult.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's what it sounds like to me then, is you probably were engaging. What could have gone on then, now that you tell me that?
Because she was answering all my questions.
That's what I was gonna
Like,
say.
You know?
Here's what probably is going on, is she probably wants to move, and so she was engaging with you, and it was ticking him off because he doesn't want to move, and so, yeah, now that I hear that, yeah, there's not much you can do about that. So you just move on and you go, next. Yeah, so good job though, because that is probably exactly what was happening, is she was engaging with you, and he probably didn't like it, because he knew as soon as you left, she's gonna go, we should sell the house, come on, look, you heard what she said, like all of a sudden you're providing this ammo for her to use to get him to try to move, is probably what was happening. That make sense?
Yeah.
So, but here's what I will say. When we are gonna role play, we're gonna do some here in just a few minutes with it. You have got to make sure that you are, when you're talking to them, that you're doing that. Because I promise you, like, especially early on when you don't know the scripts, what happens is you'll do, so, where did you plan on moving? When do you plan on moving?
I don't.
You don't? Oh, that's great. How long have you lived here?
5 years.
Like, meaning you gotta turn it, you gotta internalize it to where you can be like, oh, that's awesome, so where did you move from? Oh, you're kidding, really, just across the town, really? Well, hey, if you ever were to move, where would you go next? And that's, when you get to that part of that question, so actually, let's turn in your books too. So we'll do it right now, since you were asking.
It's almost like every door you knock on, if you have the perspective, you're talking to your best friend.
Yep.
Maybe it would go better.
100%. Yes, no question that is true. So go to page 15. We're going to do the just listed script that I was just using with her. And in fact, I wanna actually, since you brought that up, Laura, real quick, on the phone, where I learned this was, one of the managers in Utah, we were making some recruiting calls one day, and he got on the phone, and I don't, like, let's assume he was calling Ed, so I'm gonna be him. And he goes, hey, is it, or Ed answers the phone, and say, answer it like, this is Ed. So ring.
Hi, this is Ed.
Ed, Russ Orchard, Century 21, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you today?
Hey, doing great. Hey, just wondering if you'd heard about the coaching and business planning strategies and things we're doing to help our agents be successful. And anyway, he sits and talks to the guy, and he hangs up, and I go, who is that? And he goes, oh, that was Ed. And I said, yeah, but how do you know him? And he said to me, well, I don't know him. And I was like, you're kidding, because like when you just called, it sounded like you guys had known each other forever. And he goes, I know. That's what he thought too. Like, to some extent, it's a little bit like you're in boxing throwing a jab. It's kind of, they stuns them for a second when you're like, Ed, Russ Orchard, Century 21, like it's your friend. Because, and it's funny to listen to, because I paid attention since that time when he does that, and if he's on the speaker, and I listen, and the people are like, you can hear in their voice, they're like, hey, how's it going? Like, you can tell they're kind of like, I don't know that I know who you are, but like, apparently we're friends because of how you're talking. So you're exactly right. I mean, now, you also have to be careful, because if you're too far that way, and they're like, yeah, you're kind of, which brings up the next point of, to some extent, you need to mirror and match. Meaning, if she's bubbly and excited, I need to be bubbly and excited, but if she's kind of just, yeah, what do you want? And I'm like, oh, hey, how are you? Like, she's going to be like, yeah. Like, so, same thing, think of it like if I am on the phone and I call and somebody answers the phone, hello? I don't want to be, hey, how's it going? This is Russ, Century 21. Like, they're going to be like, who's this fast-talking city slicker? Versus, if it's the other way around, they're a fast talker and I'm like, hi, my name is Russ Orchard. I'm with Century 21, and I just had a couple of, they're going to be like, okay, come on, right? So to some extent, we've got a mirror and match. So yes, we want to be like, it's talking to a friend, but we also need to still kind of pay attention to how they're acting so that we can kind of act the same way. Does that make sense? Okay, so go to page 15. Now, what I want to do is look at, so this is the script for Just Listed. So this script actually, not the very first part, but and I was wondering no. Yeah, that's fine actually, but I appreciate you taking the time. Where it says number 1, when do you plan on moving? Those 6 questions are my favorite script of all time ever for anything. When do you plan on moving? How long have you lived at this address? Where did you move from? How'd you happen to pick this area? And if you were to move, where would you go next? And when would that be? Those questions are like gold when you're out just knocking on doors. And because if you'll do it the way that I did with her, which the reason is I've done it so many times that I can come across that way to where they feel like, oh, I like this person, I want to keep talking to them. So the key thing is you got to repeat and affirm, but I'm telling you, you've got to repeat like you really care, not like you're repeating just to repeat. Does that make sense? You got to act like you really care. Wow, 5 years. God, that's great. And then, so where did you move from? Just across town. Oh, just across town, really? That's cool. Well, how did you pick this area? Well, the schools. Oh, the schools are great, aren't they? Like, make the person right. I've seen some people are like, really? The schools? I don't think the schools are that great here. I think they're better on the other side of town. Like, how's the person going to respond to that? Very unlikely they're going to be like, oh, really? Oh, well, maybe we should move then. No, they're going to be like,
How dare you?
yeah, how dare you, right? Okay.
You know, with that being said, your tone is much different, but it's also incorporated with your body language.
Correct.
Because you were much more animated.
Thank
With the smile, with the eyes, with everything that's positive coming.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, that's exactly right. Is you got to get that body language involved in it so that it, because remember, that's what, thank you for bringing that up, because you're right. Even if I said, oh, that's fantastic, the body language communicates more than anything else. So yes, you get your facial expression. Oh, you're kidding, that is awesome. Like when you do that, that's right. That's what's gonna, yeah, thank you. That is the whole thing I'm trying to say with this is the body language communicates more than anything else. So that's part of the problem is people will go, oh, that's great. So, and I mean, like you could be holding the script and I've watched people on the phone doing that. So how did you happen to pick this area?
Schools.
Oh, the schools, that's awesome. So, like, if you do that, it's not gonna work, okay? All right, so, let's do some role play with it. So, we can do it one of two ways. Either we can just break up into groups, how many, 2, 4, 6, 7, so, we could break up into groups of 2 and do it, or we can all one at a time come up here and do it, and everybody watch. What do you want to do?
Let's do groups of 2.
Okay.
Practice first.
Okay. Then you'll come up and do it. Then Lori wants to come up and show us. All right. Okay. Well, so let's do it. Get into groups of 2. We'll have one group that has 3, I guess. Though we'll have to, right?
Well, we can take, you want to do
Sure.
this week since you're here.
Okay. And then, so what I want you guys to do is practice it. In fact, actually, let's do it this way. Let's do it.
Oh, boy.
Let's do it. Actually, let's do it a little different. So let's do the group of 3, but then let's have you 4 be in one group. So all 4 of you. Now, here's why. What I want you to do is one person's going to be the agent, one's going to be the client, and then the other person's the coach. So when you're the coach, you're watching to see, and not even necessarily watching, but a lot of times if I'm listening to you guys do it, I sometimes may even close my eyes because I want to feel, what do I feel when they're doing it, when you're talking? Because you can sense, like if I turn around and do this. So how long have you lived at this address, Trudy?
5 years.
5 years, wow, that's great. Now let me do it again. So how long have you lived at this address?
5 years.
5 years, really, that's awesome. Which one was I smiling on? How do you know?
We saw your
You can feel it, right? So that to some extent, well, a lot of times when I'm listening to people, I may look down so that I don't see their facial expression because I want to hear what's the message that's coming through, just like that. So as you're the coach, and I'm not saying, you can look at them, but pay attention as the coach, how does it make you feel when they're doing it? Does that make sense? And that will help you more than even when you're the agent or the client. So, but here's what I want to do. So I want you to do the just listed script, go down to number 6, and then stop and then switch roles. Does that make sense? So decide who's the agent, who's the client, who's the coach, and then, so you guys will have 2 coaches, and then just rotate through, and everybody gets a chance to be the agent doing that. Make sense? Okay, and then I'll just kind of bounce around and listen to you. So who's going first?
You 2 will go first, and I'll be the coach.
What, you go first, how about you?
Do you want me to ask you the questions?
Do you want to start? Do you want to start?
Whatever you guys want to
Do you want
do.
to say that? Or do you want to-
So who's gonna be
Yeah, we can just do it sit down.
Who wants to go with the
I really appreciate you taking the time
I'll be
to
the agent.
speak
Okay.
about me when you're home
You
today.
wanna be
Oh, okay, thank you. Are we supposed to start the meeting?
Okay.
Oh, I know, we're supposed to go hi.
We're the coaches.
Yeah, start there.
Yeah,
Start
I was
with the
wondering, you went
high.
right into it, I'm like, what the heck are you
Yeah,
doing?
say hi, this is Tony with Century 21.
Yeah. Who the heck are you?
But yeah, start at the top and then go to number 6.
Okay. Hi, this is Tony. I'm with Century 21, and we just listed a home for sale on 1384 Catherine Road. And it has 4 bedrooms and 3 baths, and it's listed at $470,000.
I'm with Century 21.
And I was wondering,
Can we just
who do you know that would like to move into your area?
Actually, I don't know anybody right now.
Nobody? That's
And it's 4 bedrooms.
fantastic. Thank you for taking this time to think about that
And it's
question.
listed at 65.
I appreciate you taking the time to think about that.
Jones
Tell
is
me,
there. Do
where do you plan on moving?
I do.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Where do
that's
you
great.
plan on moving
How long
next?
have you known the Joneses?
I don't plan on moving at all.
Oh, you don't? Okay, terrific. How long have you lived at this current
Well, like I
address?
said, we just listed.
Oh, how long have I,
Do you
How
know
long have you
anybody
lived here in
that
Nome?
moved into that neighborhood?
for about 5 years.
5 years, wow, 5 years, that's great. Where did you move from?
Across town.
Well, thanks for
Across
thinking
town,
about it.
Terrific.
Tell me,
And how
when
did you
do you
happen to
plan?
like this area?
Like schools.
Never.
Schools, yes.
That's a long time.
Fantastic here.
How long have you lived in the neighborhood?
If you were to
5
move,
years.
5 years?
where would you go next?
That's really, that's fantastic.
I
Um,
don't think I.
What brought you to the
know.
neighborhood?
I like it here.
Simi Valley is great.
What do you
Yes,
do?
I love it here. Terrific.
Purchasing professional.
Great.
And
Isn't that something I'm
back to
familiar
LA,
with?
so that's okay.
Come on, you're not following the
Where'd you
script.
move
From LA.
From LA?
Okay,
Um,
so if you're gonna live
Come to
here,
this
now
neighborhood.
do you foresee yourself
Sorry?
going to
What made you
an
come to
area
this
in Simi
neighborhood?
Valley?
No, I'm very happy with this area.
Okay, fantastic, it is a great area. Okay. And
If you were to move, where
I'd
would
say
you go
that's about
next?
it, because
Just if you were to,
I'm not planning on
Maybe
moving.
San
so
Francisco.
San Francisco,
When would that be?
what would take you up there?
I think we covered that.
Or just.
But, oh, sorry.
So just go to point 6 and then kind of just.
Yeah, and then just
There are
switch,
long ways
yeah.
to
Okay,
drive, sure.
okay.
Um,
I thought it was great, yeah.
Kind of.
Absolutely.
I was at first, and you got better, but at first you're kind of like, who's this guy? You
Human
have to,
feedback.
I wasn't excited, it was kind of like,
Yeah.
a little intimidated, I guess.
I've never
You know what I mean?
Intimidated, okay.
No, but
I
just
would
like
have to
the
be
tone, I was like,
holding-
who is
it's
this?
kind of hard to
Whatever,
follow
but then
the
you
script,
started
you
to.
know.
Yeah, and part of that, where that comes from is just not knowing the
Right,
script.
yeah,
Which,
yeah.
which hopefully that's what you'll see out of this, is the importance of really learning.
Yeah.
Because is it clear that I knew the script?
Yes.
Yeah, like, so that's, so know that that's part of where that comes from, is and the other reason is, that under stress.
Yeah.
Remember yesterday I told you guys your thinking is out of sync with reality by a half of a second? This is a classic example of how that comes into play, of like,
Respect.
under stress, our brain goes caca. It's kind of-
I was gonna say, he would probably, and I
Yes,
feel
you
the same way about
know.
myself, but you would do better in a real life scenario.
Oh,
Yes.
when you start
Really
relaxing,
at
you
the
started
door.
to really.
Well, yeah, and then
Yes.
since it really didn't go
You have a little.
according to the questions, then I kind of had to make it up. So you guys said, I don't plan on moving back to LA, that's exciting, you know, so I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
yes,
so,
it is
but
a
on
great area.
that, here's what I would say on that. So,
Maybe embody.
so let me do it, so with you. So when do you plan on moving, Lori?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard.
No, that's not what you said.
Situation too.
Oh, you want me to say something?
Yeah, do the, I want you to do the exact, cause I wanna show Tony how
Oh, you
to.
didn't wanna move.
I didn't.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
So when do you plan on moving?
I don't plan on moving.
No plans to move, really? Okay, so how long have you lived here? Just, it's like you just go right to the next question. No matter what they say, that's almost the way to think of it is, it doesn't matter really, I mean, it does matter, but it doesn't matter what they say. I'm just gonna either acknowledge it,
Yeah.
affirm it with, hey, that's terrific, or,
I don't know.
that really,
Yeah, I know.
interesting.
I can-
Like,
I
if you
can
wanna
hear my
place
mom
doubt
thinking about
with
the
them,
script.
you go, interesting. So, no plans to move, interesting. Cause then it kinda has them feel like, should I be planning to move? So, but then you just go to the next question. So like, so do it again, just that first part, and just repeat what she says and affirm it, and then go to the next question.
Do you want me to actually do it the way they?
Nope, I want you to do exactly what you did, because I want him to see that how you can still do it, and you'll be just fine.
Okay, so it's number 5.
I just want to let you know that the neighbors on 21-847.
Is it number 5?
Just
No, number one.
accepted a
What do you plan?
It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath at 689.
And when do you plan on
Do
moving?
you know the owners of the house?
No plans to
Oh, you
move?
don't, okay.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, so much better. That is
Oh, no,
great.
that wasn't the question, huh? It was that if you were to move, where would you go next?
Right, well,
That's right, yeah, sorry.
That didn't make sense.
But that was really good.
Gotcha, so yeah, let's back up. So if you were to move, where would you go next? Now
Okay,
say.
that's okay, and I appreciate you thinking
Oh,
about it.
no plans to
Well,
move.
what about
Okay,
you?
really?
You
Now,
have-
that's where then, at that point, it wouldn't make sense to go to number 7. So when you, so watch what I mean. So
Okay.
if you ever were to move, where would you go next? Say no
How
plans.
long have you lived at this address?
No plans, really. So obviously you realize it could take 1 to 3 months in this market to get a home sold. So were you planning to get started in 3 months or? Like, it's,
Yeah, but you
did you
altered
listen to
it.
what I said?
Yeah,
Hear
but you
that a
altered
lot.
it before, where you took it
I
to
know this.
invest.
That's what I was just gonna say. So
Yeah.
instead, what I do, if they say no to that, so if you were to move, where would you go next?
Agura
I don't know plans.
So no plans, really? Okay, well, hey, let me ask you, how are you using real estate to plan for your financial future?
Yes.
So I'm not doing anything right now.
Nothing right now. Okay, well, have you ever considered buying
know
investment
you've been
properties. See, almost everybody always has.
Yeah.
So that's why you can just, well, hey, how are you using that? So if I get to number 6 there and they're
And when would
like,
that
yeah, we're
be?
not moving, or 5 and they're, yeah, I'm not moving.
All right, well, thank you so much
I
for
just
your
switch
advice.
gears
Let me-
instead of the, oh, so when would that be? I switch to, well, hey, well, let me ask you, how are you using real estate to plan for your financial
I want
future?
to ask you, since,
No,
you
really
know,
not.
I'm here.
Oh, you're not?
would
Was
you
it something
want
you've
to
considered?
find out?
Everybody's gonna
This
be
is
like,
what
yeah,
I
I've
do
thought
for
about
my
it, I've heard it's
clients.
good, or whatever.
I
Oh,
give
okay, well,
them
what we
free
ought to do is get
evaluation.
together and
Would
let's
you
talk
like to
about
find out
the
what
process
you
and what
can
that looks
do
like.
with real estate to upgrade your life?
So, yeah,
Sure.
I probably should have said, follow
Great, great.
Exactly.
what- exactly what it says, right?
That's all right.
Already at 40.
The lesson involves already.
That's right.
You did well.
Okay, great.
All right,
Thursday,
so-
I'll see you.
So now just switch.
Thank you.
Okay, now you can torture me, so I don't know what to do either.
Well, no, actually, do it like in a, so that, because she's already been the coach, so let Tony now be the coach, you be the agent, she'll be the.
So
you can tell, I can tell.
Hi, my name is Lori Hoffman, I'm from Century 21. Somebody, one of our neighbors just listed a home for sale over on 268 East Brandon Street. And it's a 4-bedroom, 2 baths, and it listed at $400,000 and $450,000. And I was wondering, who do you know that
Like when I said
wants
parents.
to move into this area?
No one, no idea.
Or something.
Nobody, not at all?
Yeah, I thought you
Nope.
did really well.
Well,
Not a soul.
I appreciate you taking this time to think about it. Tell me,
Just
what do you
stop
know?
thinking, what's the next question?
Never?
Okay.
How long have you lived at this address?
10 years.
10 years. That's great.
Oh, I'm not on the phone.
Where did you move from?
LA.
I'm reading it. Okay.
Good for you. This is a great area. How did you happen to pick this area?
Job
Our
transfer.
company just listed
Wow,
it
that's
also
excellent.
last summer.
If you were to move,
And I
where would
was
you
wondering,
go?
Back to LA.
oh, it has 4
That's
bedrooms, 3
exciting.
baths, 725.
Make sure you repeat back. Back to LA?
Back in LA, okay, that's exciting. And when would you be doing this?
Not offhand.
3 months.
3 months.
The Smiths.
Fantastic.
I mean, everything.
I've seen them a few
you've
times,
heard,
but don't know
everything.
them real well.
Yeah, but I
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody who might be
You were all trying to
neighborhood friends.
Yeah, well, I guess when you're doing
Okay,
it, probably
and,
would
do you
use it
plan on moving?
or, you know, kind of
no.
turn some of the words a little more to your style.
Well, then you make it more
5.
real
This is a
life,
great
it's real
neighborhood.
life,
Like,
so.
do you
Enjoy
elaborate
it.
I like it.
on
And
that?
what brought you
Like,
here?
oh, back to
The
LA,
schools,
great, like, what part of
schools.
LA?
Now,
Oh, I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Do you elaborate on it, or just go
They're
from one to the other?
Right, exactly. Probably elaborate a little bit.
Let's
Because
see,
you
how
want to
did,
make
also,
this
this
as a connection.
Right, right.
And
You're
if
going
you
from
were to
one
move,
one.
Yeah.
Great,
like
you
if
know.
you.
And it never
had a wish
fails when you're
list
door
and
knocking, somebody
you-
throws in
Oh,
stuff
maybe
and you
Hawaii.
add on
Hawaii, yeah, I
that.
wouldn't mind.
So it probably deviates.
Have you got to go to
Yeah.
Hawaii?
But I think that's
No,
better.
it sounds
That's
like a
what
good
you-
place
Yeah,
to live.
yeah, it would be
I
great.
know. And then they
Nice
start
and warm.
liking you more,
So,
when you get the connection, right?
Yeah.
I made a mistake just now because I should have engaged
Yeah,
more.
but the exercise was just
Better.
those words.
You're fine.
So,
For a role
okay,
play, it's
so,
gonna be cute.
So
let me
then
ask
I'll
you
be
this.
the
Can I
agent
leave
and
my
then you
card
be the
that you
client,
could
and then I
somebody
wish you'd
that
be
might be
coach,
moving
yeah.
into the area, you could give them
the.
my.
Hi, this is Laura with
information.
Century
And also,
21. I
was
just
wondering
listed a
if you thought
home
about,
over on
the
3200
next
East
thing
Los
on this
Angeles.
program.
And it has 2
Or,
bedrooms, 1 bath, and we listed it
Not
at
really.
470.
And would you be
And I was
interested?
wondering,
Lived
who do
here
you know
5
that
years
might like
and
to move into the
prices
area?
have,
I don't know
increased in
anyone.
value.
No
Homes have
one?
increased
Okay,
value.
okay,
Interested in
fantastic.
being
I appreciate you taking the time to think about it. Tell me, when do you plan on moving?
Time that would be better for one day,
Never.
maybe.
Never? Not even giving it a thought?
No,
Okay,
no.
okay. How long have you lived at this address?
Yeah, that would be good.
10
Okay.
years.
10 years, wow, that's fantastic. You must really love it here. Where did you move from?
LA.
LA. Okay, great. How did you happen to pick this area?
It's very natural.
Job transfer.
Okay, perfect, excellent. If you were to move, where would you go next?
Well, I've listened
I
to
most
you.
likely would go back to LA.
LA, okay, that's exciting. And when would that be?
Yeah.
3 months.
3 months, okay, that's not too far off. Well, fantastic.
Like great,
She's like an expert.
I've not done
critical, as opposed to
But I
just,
have to be honest
as
with you.
opposed to like when she was saying no.
I never
Oh,
did
so you
that.
already-
Yeah,
No,
so-
I was never really interested.
I know, I was actually paying attention to that,
Have
I
you done
think,
door knocking yet?
Not.
I think it's better to, what you did was when you're like, oh,
Okay, just
well,
got my license, so.
the schools.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my kids go to school too, and I really like that. But I think that's good, but I think it would be better
I don't know
to
if
just
I
say,
do, so
the
when I
schools,
come to the
oh,
same
that's
office
fantastic, you know, I
Wednesday,
totally
Fred
can
is the
appreciate where you're coming from
I
on
was
that.
always saying
I think just,
sales,
like,
I'm
that's
a
where,
saleswoman now,
that
sales this and sales that.
affirming is what,
And Fred
that's where
said
I
to
could
me
get
the
you to
other day
smile, was every time when I go,
before,
5 years,
don't
really?
ever
That's
do
good for
He
you.
said, you're a matchmaker.
You know, just anything that
Okay, so
is
that's actually kind of like
validating them
Have
of
you
like,
ever
oh,
heard
that's
that perspective?
fantastic,
And this
great
is our
job.
branch manager in Valencia, and I
So
just
the
adore
schools,
him.
oh, perfect,
And he
yeah,
said,
no,
you're
my kids go to
matching
schools, I know
someone
what
to
you
their
mean, it's
perfect
great.
home.
Like,
You
I
were
think that's just
facilitating
adding
like
on
a
to it,
date.
which is great.
And I just thought that was a really cool
Like a one-word
perspective.
affirmation.
You know, that you, that you're looking to make that person
And then say what
happy,
you said.
fulfill a need, and match them up.
Excellent.
So,
Okay, with that.
They have to learn those little
Fantastic.
keywords. Keep those little words in there.
actually, you know why this is helpful, and this is where Kathleen explained to me, and she has said this in class. The scripts help you keep your
Okay,
thoughts
just
in line. Because sometimes, you know, you might
Hello.
get nervous, and then
Hi,
all
how
of
are
a
you
sudden your
today?
head's scattered, you don't know what to think
I'm
next, and then it's like,
fantastic.
oh, the script, go back to the script. So this helps keep your thoughts in line.
The other thing I would add to that is the scripts are designed to
Oh, yeah, I
take
know
you,
them.
I mean, when I say
I
your
do.
job is to lead, it leads them to a end result of an appointment.
Perfect,
And
yeah.
so I love what you're saying, but it just also is, it's designed almost to, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but almost to back them into a corner. Like,
You know,
they don't have a
right
choice
off-
but to
right off
say.
the top of
And
my
we
head,
need that,
I'm
because
not
like,
aware of
I've
anybody
never
that's
done
in
sales or
movie
anything
mode.
like that, and one thing that the team leader that I'm with right now, she said, you know what, Laura, you're great at making conversation and everything, but you don't have good conversion, because I don't know how to back someone into a corner, I don't know how to do
To,
this.
yep, to lead them to that
Yeah,
spot.
yeah, so that's why I've only gotten like one appointment.
Okay, good, well.
You know, I've lived
So
here
this,
23
it
years.
is awesome,
Wow,
yeah.
23 years,
Yeah.
that's
I-
great.
And I'm pretty
Like,
much.
remember
Well, no, but see what happens is, no, I talk to you all day long, but it's, I'm not converting,
Yeah,
You know, I moved from
you
Texas.
know, and I can see, yeah, you're right, you're honing
Yeah, it's a
it
bit
in.
more.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is a skill that I don't
Well, that's
possess.
great,
Cool.
Yeah,
and what brought you
you have to
here?
really practice
You know, my
this.
wife.
That, which is why I
Raised
have
here.
that, every
I
day
ended
you
up
should be
marrying
role
her,
playing this stuff
and
and
this is
practice,
where she
because you
wanted
gotta
to
get
be,
it
and I wanted to be with her.
internalized to where
That's
it can
good.
just sound like a
That's
conversation.
excellent.
That's what's
And
funny,
you
is
were
sometimes
to
people will
move,
say, well, I
where
hate
would you
scripts
live,
because, like,
if
it's,
you,
I sound scripted. Well,
wanted
if
to
you
sell the house,
internalize
where
it,
would you go?
it,
You know,
when I do it,
I
I can
really
make it
don't
just
have
sound
an
like
interest
it's
in moving.
a natural conversation.
Texas,
Oh,
and I
so
look
where
at
did
the
you
weather
move
here
from?
and the
Oh,
Yeah.
really? So how did you pick this area?
There's
I mean,
no
it's more like
comparison.
you're just curious, so like, so
That's,
you moved from the other side of
exciting.
town, well, how
wanted
did you
to
pick
stay
this
there.
area? Oh, school,
Absolutely.
oh, schools, yeah, that makes sense, okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, well, just if you ever were to
And
move,
would
where would
be
you go next?
interested in,
You're more
investing
personalized,
in
too.
other
You're kind of making it
companies?
your own.
But
Yeah.
we can do that too,
Yeah.
we just have to do it as many times as he does.
Yeah, well, and the key thing is notice, what the thing, the only thing I'm personalizing is, because I know it, I don't have to think about the script. I can worry about the tone and all that kind of stuff, because really, like I said, I'm using the exact same
Wants
words.
to buy a home.
It's just
Could
how you use the words
give
that,
them my
that makes the
referral?
difference,
Can I give you some cards?
Oh, absolutely, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Oh,
Sure.
thank you, that's great.
I'll behave myself now.
she'll follow the script this time.
Yeah.
Hi, my
We
name is
just need to
Tony,
go down
I'm
to number 6
21,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
this
we
is
were
the
just
home for
looking
sale
for this, so
over on
that's-
1384 Catherine Road. It has 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, and it's
Okay.
listed for
So how did it go here?
$475,000.
So,
And I was wondering,
just your nervousness.
no, that would like to.
Yeah, so I would just say, you know, just kind of sit back and
No
kind of
one.
just, like in this
Okay.
situation, just
Well,
kind
thank
of
you for taking the time
read
to
the
think about
words,
that question.
wrote from the page.
Let me ask you a question.
You just kind of go
When
down
do you plan on
the
moving?
list, because you were trying to
Never.
not make a
Never?
mistake and
Never.
kind of.
Okay, it's a great area, I know, terrific. How long have you lived
Don't
at
be
this
nervous.
address?
I'm too
About
nervous.
10 years.
Yeah.
10 years.
So,
Maybe like
practice,
this, just
practice,
for-
practice, practice.
And where did you move from?
I lost
Yeah, I was gonna say, it almost, I was just thinking that, is it's almost better to just follow it exactly the way
That's why I think
it is
now.
in there,
And,
but just
how
while
did you
you're
have a
learning it
Right.
at first,
Let's transfer
because
here.
it's hard enough to
Job
remember what to say, and then
Right.
somebody throws a curveball at you.
And if
Well,
you
if you
were
ever
to
where,
where
would you go next? No.
I'll probably just act like it.
Is that what you said? I'm
I'm
gonna talk, yeah, well, that is, when you go door knocking, you will hear that a lot. They're gonna bury me under that tree out in the front yard.
Obviously,
And I always act like, it's the first time I've heard it. Oh, you're kidding. Yeah, that's funny.
You guys
It's
did
all
great,
I've
and
heard.
really,
55,000
It's
times.
I was
just
okay, but I'm gonna
about-
die in this house.
Yeah, oh, I hear you.
It's just
Yeah,
practicing.
well, I hear that
I hear that a
all the time. When you're door
Yeah,
knocking,
you
you'll hear
guys
people
did
say that all the
awesome.
time. And I always
And I
act like
think
it's the
anybody
first time I've
could be
ever heard it.
awesome at
Oh,
that.
wow.
It's just
Well,
practicing.
I go, well,
Practicing and
hopefully that's not
practicing
so
and
too
practicing.
soon.
Right.
I was
Like it's
telling
usually
Lori
what I
yesterday,
say.
so I
Oh,
have
well, I hope
about
that doesn't
12
happen right
I've
away.
had my license for like 3.5 months, and I just hit the ground running.
Yeah, you don't want
So I
okay.
didn't
All
have a
right,
choice.
you guys
I'll tell you
done?
my story later.
All right, so give me some feedback on it. What'd you learn from this?
Practice makes it.
Need a lot of practice. Okay, good. What else?
It's nerve wracking.
Say more about what it means, nerve-wracking. Why is it? Why is it nerve-wracking?
It's just talking to strangers.
Oh, okay, I see
She
what you're saying.
did great.
Yeah.
She did, she did really good.
I think just not having the confidence makes us stumble.
Yes,
So it just perpetuates the need to learn this.
to role play. That's right. That's why when I was telling you, every day I would, before I went door knocking, and usually what we would do is when I ran across a scenario that I, like, let's say I had been out door knocking and somebody had said something that I didn't know how to respond to, the next day at role play, that lady Shirley that I was telling you, she and I would role play together, I'd always throw it at her. I would always go, okay, let's role play the just listed script, and we'd get to something that the person would say, and I'd say it, and then I'd see how she responded. Sometimes she would respond, I'd be like, oh, that was good, I gotta make sure I get that. Or she might go, oh, I don't know. And we would sit and then talk about, well, what kinds of things how would we respond to that? How do you wanna, what should we say to this or that? Does that make sense? And that's how you get it. But yeah, the key thing is just getting this internalized to where you don't have to think about what the next question is, you can actually listen to them. So, in fact, so I put together the daily messages. The one that's gonna come out tomorrow morning actually has to do with what we're talking about right now, which is active listening. So listen to tomorrow's daily message and what George has to say about it, because it is very fitting for what we're talking about right now, of just really, you gotta actively listen to what people are saying so that you can respond and be excited or whatever, so. All right, what else? What other questions?
I think when you knock on doors, you feel like there's like a timer.
Uh-oh.
You can only have their attention for so long.
Yeah.
You kind of have to get over that you're going there to bother someone. You kind of have to think of it differently. And
Yep.
with the door knocking aspect.
Love it. Yeah, and good segue. I got a video I'm gonna show you guys. Now, some of you may have seen this before, but I don't agree with everything that this guy does, but he does some pretty good things. So, did I get it turned on? Oh, yeah, here it goes. But I love what you just said, Tony, because that it's kind of true at first, which actually reminds me of another story I'll tell you after this. But if you connect with the people, you will earn the right to keep talking to them longer. So, and that's what I mean is with this guy here. So watch.
I'm gonna be quick like Nestle and beat it like Michael Jackson. That's why your neighbor said I remind him of Nicolas Cage, because I'm gone in 60 seconds. But watch this right here, then look. Who does this the most on the window? The kids, the dogs, that are ugly black guys that eat fried chicken. Now you see these water spots? Look, they get whiter than my elbows without lotion. Watch this, Dan, and I'm right here. Because Stevie Wonder says seeing is believing. And I got a disease called enthusiasm, so I'm gonna cut straight to the mustard. Watch this though, don't laugh too hard, because the neighbor's gonna see this black kid scrubbing your window, okay? But look, wax on like Mr. Miyagi. Remember the Karate Kid? Now watch this, the air dry, look, it puts a coating on your window. No water spots, no fingerprints, no streaks. That's why we can't sell it to criminals. Don't tell OJ or Tiger Woods, okay? I found it. They've been loving this stuff. Now, Dad, y'all, you and Mom, y'all would agree. Oh my God! You see this right here? Who did that? Who did that? Okay, watch this. Now, my mom said if it's darker than me and it don't pay the bills, it shouldn't be there, right? God bless you. Now look, this right here, we just upgraded like Beyonce. This is our new surfactant. Hold this and watch this, because this should be the main reason why you get the HBO special. You know what HBO means? No. You get to help a brother out. Yeah, I've been on the road like toilet paper. Half of your neighbors in the community, they say they just go get it because I'm funny, because this stuff spills itself. But if you just go back and forth like an argument, now I ain't Jesus, but what if I split down like Moses did the Red Sea? Paint me green, call me a pickle. And look at this right here, look. Goes good with chicken. Don't drink it, don't give you the Hershey squirts. But look, that one bottle lasts longer than my last relationship. Y'all got water, right? Yeah, high five, you qualify to use it. Oh yeah, mom. Now, this is my last demo and I'm out your hair quicker than your favorite shampoo. Y'all familiar with these right here, Sharpies? Yeah. Now watch this, even though I'm black, it ain't black magic, it just works. Cause look, say you got this in the clothes or the carpets of the laundry. Would you agree that's hard to get out? Probably. Would you throw it out, shout it out, get OJ to stab it out, Mike Tyson to bite it out, Kobe Bryant? Well, you was,
Oh, okay, you were done.
it was a multiple choice funny though, cause you know you can't put bleach on colors, right? Sure. Look at this. This is safe on colors. That's why we couldn't sell it to 7 so. But look, you just spray the spray, right? Now, this right here takes out ink, blood, coffee stains, grass stains, Kool-Aid, lipstick, gum glue, candle. Would you say that's whiter than the Colgate Smile? Now, oh my goodness, you see that?
Can you use it on my teeth?
It ain't Jesus in the bottle. I use mine, they turn brown. No, I'm just kidding. But no, you just use it all for your house. What's the hardest thing to clean? Would it be carpet, the tile, barbecue grills, the shower doors, that oil and rust in the driveway that's blacker than my mother but not as beautiful? Or that counseling right there.
Can I put this on YouTube?
Yes, ma'am.
What are you selling? What is it?
Personality. Show me. But this sells itself though. It's called Advantage, the Wonder Cleaner, best thing since cake and ice cream. Now, unlike Madonna, it's never been touched. So you want to put 2 caps in a bottle. And well, I just come, most of your neighbors, they just get it because they like me. Y'all familiar with Tony Robbins? Yeah. See, I'm taking this course because this is how Jamie Foxx started off door to door. And he said 2 years of door to door selling is equivalent to 4 years of college communication. How you interact with different people. That's why half of the neighbors don't buy it because of work. They just get it because they like my tenacity because they said it in an easy task going door to door.
How much is it?
I'm pretty sure Windex and bleach ain't never knocked on y'all door, made you laugh when mom went and got the camcorder just to tape it, right? High five. That's all I'm saying. But what y'all do for a living? Y'all must be in sales too, huh?
Kinda.
I know, but your house bigger than my whole neighborhood. And Zig Ziglar said every great salesperson buy from a good one, right? God bless you. But that's what I said, just try the one. You don't even gotta buy the case today like man, like my mom said you can't get the whole chicken, at least get the wing, right? And oatmeal beat no meal. But like I said, you only put 2 caps, 20 ounces of water, so that one bottle make you 68 sprayers. But you should just save my autograph because by the time you run out, you probably see me on Last Comic Standing and then you go to eBay and get your money back. Because even Jesus said if you give a person a fish, you can feed them for a day, but if you teach them how to fish, you can feed them for a lifetime, right? Sure. God bless you. But if y'all had it, who would you try it on first? Did that right there, or the hard water spots, or just because I'm funny?
What? I don't know. How much is it?
Well, the one bottle is just 36 a bottle, and you get a spray bottle, it makes you 68 bottles. I just get 50% of that, because if I don't sell nothing, I'm getting none. That's why your neighbor, he said, I'm just going to get it because you're funny, because the one thing that your neighbors did say, yeah, look, right here, you know all of these cleaners, another joke though, so take this one. But you know all of these cleaners right here y'all use? They said this stuff is like a pregnant lady on welfare, it don't work. Okay. You get it? Because you know there's Clorox, Simple Green, Full, and that comic, Spick and Span, Pine Sol, y'all probably use a lot of those, right? Now if you had a choice of grabbing a solid dollar or 100 pennies, what's easy? Dollar. High five there, so you sharper than Gillette, that's what I'm talking about. Now this should be really the check test for y'all though. Now mom, you see y'all door handle? That brass? Oh my God, pull it door. Watch this. This should be the main reason why y'all get to get rid of me special.
Can you sell it for $30?
I'll get fired right now, but what you can do, mom, you can write this off for fundraising though. That's what most of your neighbors can do.
What?
You get the
Was
right.
that a yes?
I like you, mom. You must be a teacher.
No.
Because you got a lot of class. But you see right here though? For real? No, you get to write it off though. That's why a lot of your neighbors don't do it from their pocket, they do it from their heart. But I'll tell you what I can do. If y'all get the one bottle, I'm gonna throw in a free Mary Kay, Christian Dior, Calvin Klein, Louis Vuitton spray bottle to go with it. But this should be the check test though. You see this brass right here? Now I'm gonna be on. When last time y'all seen this look shiny like a baby honey? When y'all first bought the house? God bless you. Watch this right here. Now, it's so old. I know now it's about to be brand new. It's gonna go from 79 to 2010. Look at that. Oh my goodness. That's worth the bottle right there.
Off the door,
Oh yeah, it won't. Don't panic. It's organic. Remember I told you it won't fade color. Remember? That's why we couldn't. That's why we couldn't sell it to Michael Jackson. Well, our product need OSHA, USDA, EPA, and PETA. You know this is safe around dogs. I like Michael Vick, and it's safe around kids. I like Pee Wee Herman. I got it. Oh yeah. Would you say the show alone worth for me getting a commission off that one bottle? Hell yeah. Well, yeah. That's why you should do it from your heart. You think I can do stand-up comedy? Oh yeah. That's the only reason why I'm doing it. This is a stepping stone for me because I get a commission to pay for my acting school. That's why a lot of your neighbors. Are you from around here? I'm from my mama. Don't tell my daddy he's a faggot. But we stay out here now. Yeah, we stay on.
What's your name?
Kenny Brooks. Why you gonna see me on TV? Make sure you take that Kenny Brooks.
Well, because I think if you're around, because we.
All right, that's good now. So, what do you think?
Humor goes a long way.
Yeah, I mean, notice that just by him, but did he connect with them?
Yes.
Yeah, so kind of when Tony brought up and was saying like, you have to kind of earn the right to be there, you got, really is just another way of saying you got to connect. If you can connect with them, they'll totally sit and talk to you. So, all right, what questions? It's 10:27. Let's take a short break. 10 minutes good? Or do we need 15? Yesterday it took us 15. All right. So 15? All right. So let's do, so it's 10:27, so 10:40. All right, everyone's back. You know, it's time to start anyway. So I guess 15 minutes is what we need, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So any questions in terms of what we've talked about so far on the connecting? The repeating and affirming. The only other thing that I want to add to on that, and then I want to start moving into talking about creating value, is on the connecting piece. The other thing that I would say to add to your notes, so you got to repeat and affirm. I had you write that down, right? So you need to be repeating and affirming. The other one that we want to do is to make sure that we are also showing some empathy. In particular is so empathizing with people if they're frustrated. So like we just were going through and doing the just listed script. But if you flip back a few pages to like either the expired or the for sale by owner scripts, on those, a lot of times on a for sale by owner and expired, they're frustrated that they are getting so many calls from people. And like for example, on an expired, you guys understand what an expired listing is, right? Mm-hmm. So on an expired, typically they're frustrated because they had their home on the market for 6 months and no agents were coming, hardly anybody was showing the house, and then all of a sudden it expires and now they're getting 20 calls from agents. So by the time you call, it may be like you're the 21st person and they're like, you know what, I'm sick of you guys calling me, leave me alone, stop bugging me. So the empathy is how we want to deal with them. So have any of you called an expired or for sale by owners?
I wrote a ton of letters and I got one response, so I communicated with the person on the phone.
Okay, but as far as like you didn't call them out of the blue or anything. Okay, so it's not uncommon for them to be like let's do for sale by owner. Like I want to sell it on my own. Like didn't you read the ad? It says no agents. Why are you calling me? Like they're taking that approach. So we want to empathize with people. So let me give you an example. So somebody who can be ornery and mean and will role play with me. You guys are also nice, so I'm going to be careful.
She used to be a cop.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So I don't know if I want her to be that mean. Okay. So Lori, so let's assume. Do you want to be a for sale by owner or expired?
For sale by owner.
For sale by owner. Okay. So what I want to do is approach it from the standpoint of that, like, I'm the 15th person to call you today. It's like, I don't want to list my home. What are you guys bugging me for? Does that make sense? Okay, so, and since we're doing FSBO, I'm going to do, there's a couple of different scripts in here. I'm going to do FSBO script number 2. There's 3 different ones. So if you guys want to follow along, it's 25. Okay? Okay, so ring.
Yes.
Hey, is this Lori?
Yes.
Lori, this is Russ. I'm a Century 21 troop. I work.
Hold on for a second.
Yeah.
Do you see that sign back there? It said.
Oh, we're at the door. I was thinking we're at the front. Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
No, you're good.
All right.
No, we're at the door. It's fine. I'm good with that.
Okay. Can you see that sign back there? It says me. It's just me selling this house, not you. Would you please just turn around and go back? And get
So
out
it
here?
sounds like maybe you've had a lot of agents coming and talking to you.
You can't believe how many have come around. I'm
Really?
tired of it.
I know you kick a bush and they run out, right?
I don't even know what to say. I'm just tired of this. Just
Yeah,
tired.
I can imagine. It's got to be frustrating when you're trying to sell it on your own and the agents keep coming and knocking on your door, right?
Yeah, let me tell you about it. I'm just tired of it and I can't stand it anymore. And why are you here?
Oh, so yeah, thanks for asking. So the reason that I'm here is I work with a lot of buyers and sellers in the area, and I was just coming to see how I could help you get your home sold.
And how are you gonna do that? That's why I wanna do it.
Well, so like I said, I work with a lot of buyers and sellers in the area, so it's possible that I have somebody that could be interested in your home.
Like who?
Oh, I have a ton of different clients that I work with. So,
Okay, and what more can you do for me?
well, so I guess first I just wanted to find out, why did you decide to sell this home?
Well, I wanna leave and I wanna go to another state.
So you want to leave and go to another state? Oh, really? What state are you thinking to?
Arizona.
Arizona, really? God, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That'd be exciting. How soon did you need to be there?
Uh,
I don't know if I'm following
that's
the
why-
script anymore, but. Oh, I am, okay.
Well, that's why I put it up to sell myself, because I want people to come and see it, and I think if I can do it myself,
Sure.
I won't need you.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, no question in my mind, you could do it yourself. Like, people do it all the time.
Yeah, I
So-
know, that's why I wanna do it.
Yeah, so let me ask you, how soon do you have to be to Arizona?
I wanna get there as soon as possible, but approximately 3 months.
About 3 months. Okay, perfect. So, well, let me ask you, how did you determine the price that you're using to sell your home?
Well, I go on Zillow and I look around places around here and I got a good price, and this is what I want, because I need this amount so I can buy my other house.
So you need that amount to get the other house?
That's right, and that's why I
Awesome.
don't wanna pay you your 20% commission anymore.
Really? Well, hey, totally understand that really what I hear you saying then really is what you want to do is net the most amount of money.
Yes,
Right.
that's exactly what I want.
Perfect. Well, so let me ask you though, if there was a way that you could actually net more by using me, would that be something you would be interested in?
You'd have to show me that, because I don't believe you.
Perfect. That's the very reason I was thinking we should get together, is so that I could show you how we could do that. Because really, the truth is, I have techniques and strategies that could help you get your home sold and net you more money. So when would be the best time for us to sit down and talk more about that?
Maybe next week,
Next week. Okay, great. How about our afternoons or evenings better?
evenings.
Evenings. Okay, so let's do it 4 or 6 o'clock.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, great.
You're too nice.
Well, so now here's the piece that I was wanting to show you though, the piece that I wanted to work on with this is the empathy. Is when you knock on their door or call on the phone and they are mad, look, I'm sick of you guys calling me. Like, you gotta have some empathy. And a lot of times agents just go, I'm sick of you guys calling me. Oh, you're sick of us calling? Okay, well, so hey, I just work with a lot of buyers and sellers and I was wondering how could I help you? I haven't done anything, so you've got to disarm that first, and the way to disarm it is to say, hey, if I were you, I would feel the same way. And I don't know if I actually used those words with her, but that's the message I want to get to them. Hey, if I were you, I'd feel that way too. So when I said to her, it sounds like you're getting hammered by a lot of different agents, and she just kind of kept ranting. She didn't say, yeah, I am, I'm sick of it. She just kind of kept ranting, which is fine. If they do that, you just, hey, look, that's got to be frustrating, I'm sure. Like, that's got to be annoying to have that. You're trying to sell it yourself, and here us agents keep coming and knocking on the door. By you empathizing with them, has them go, I know, I'm sick of it. And then that's when I'll say, I know, you kick a bush and a realtor runs out. Or, the other one that I'll use is I'll be like, I know, next thing you know, they're going to be flying over your house in helicopters, dropping like pamphlets on your door. And they're like, I know, seriously, it wouldn't surprise me. But by getting on their side of the table, in essence, I was going, I know, you guys are horrible. Like, right? I'm kind of getting next to her being like, yeah, you guys are the worst. By doing that, has her go, I like this guy. Like, there's something about him that I like. But what is it that she likes?
You
on
aligned
her
with
side.
her.
Yeah, you're on my side.
That's right, I'm on her side. I know, it's frustrating. That's got to be annoying. Sometimes I'll even say, I know, I get to deal with them every single day. Like, I get where you're coming from. Like, so, because then they're like, yeah, you know how frustrating it is. Yeah, I do. Well, so let me ask you, where, if you sold this house, where are you going to go next? And then, bam, I'm just right into the script. Now, I was able to get to it before. If she wouldn't have I can't remember even what she said. She said something that got me towards the appointment. Otherwise, I would have gone right back to number 6. Well, hey, what methods? Because I said, how did you determine your price? But I would have just, hey, what methods are you using to sell your home? Signs and ads. Oh, signs and ads, that's great. And in essence, I just said, I've got methods that maybe could net you more money than doing it on your own. Cause see, in fact, there's one thing, if you turn back in your book, under some skills things here, so if you go back to, where's it at here? Page 12. You go back to page 12, is level shifts. Because that's what I actually did to her. On page 12 talks about level shifts. What I did is when she said, yeah, I'm moving to Arizona and I gotta have every bit of the money I can get out of this house so that I can buy my new house. So I just did a level shift on her is what I did. Is I said, well, so really what you're, by saying you don't want to pay a commission, really what you're saying is you want to net the most money, right? Because see, so I just shifted the level from, it's not about the commission, it's about you getting the most amount of money, right? Well, yeah, of course. Well, if there was a way that you could use me and still net you the most amount of money, would it be something you would want to talk about? Well, I don't know how that's possible. Well, now you guys, I showed you yesterday, Tony, you missed it, but I showed you guys yesterday, are they gonna net more by using me? On average. Yeah, so, hey, we just need to sit down so I can show you, because really, at the end of the day, there's some things that I can do that will net you more money using me. So, because really what you're saying is you wanna walk away with as much money as you can. Well, there may be ways that you can use me and walk away with even more money than if you do it on your own. Now, that is true, by the way. I mean, number one, you saw this stuff yesterday. But let me give you another example of a client that I had that when we got an offer in and it was time to negotiate that offer, the client at one point was like, well, yeah, let's just accept it. And I said, well, hold on. Like, I really just feel like we may be able to get a few more dollars out of this. And now I don't always do this, so don't like assume you're gonna do this every time. But I just, for whatever reason in that situation, my gut just said these buyers will pay a little bit more money. And so I just said, hey, let's counter back and let's counter, they were gonna accept it, if I remember right, the price was like $340 or $342, and I just felt like they'd go $345. But I said, let's counter back $347.5, and then they'll probably counter us back at $345, and then we can just accept it. And at least we'll get you a few $1,000s more. So we countered back at $347.5, and they just accepted our counter. So like my client ended up netting, I want to say it was $340 they were going to accept. And I said, let's go to $347.5. So I netted them an extra $7,500. Well, on that price, what percentage is that? Almost 2%, or around 2%. Yeah, well, $7,500 for, yeah, basically 2%. So, in essence, I saved them, or earned them some extra dollars. Does that make sense? So like, recognizing like, it's very possible. Now, to some extent, you guys are newer, so you're not going to have this as much, but like there are a lot of times in the negotiation, you'll just get the feeling of like, to be able to tell the client, hey, I think we can do a little bit better on this. Or you may have the reverse of like, I know you want to counter, but like, we're probably going to lose them if we do. You'll just, the longer you do this, the more you'll get that type of a thing to where you can be just like, look, this is what's going to be the best thing in this scenario. So. But to bring it back now to what we were talking about, so you got to empathize with the people. So when the opportunity is there for them to be just like, if they're frustrated or whatever, is just, you want to say to them, if I were you, I would feel the exact same way. Now, here's the question. If you were them, would you feel the same way? Meaning like sometimes people will be like, well, I don't feel right. Remember yesterday our persuade somebody versus manipulate thing we were talking about? Like, this is part of that process of persuading somebody, but sometimes people will say, well, but I don't agree with them. Meaning like if she's saying, I hate agents and I want to sell my house on my own. Hey, if I were you, I'd feel that same way. Now, am I being honest? Am I telling the truth by saying if I were you, I'd feel the same way? Do I feel, let me ask you different, do I feel the same way? No. But if I were her, would I feel the same way? Meaning, if I had all of her life experience, if I knew everything she knew, would I feel the exact same way she does? Yes, so recognize that it's okay to say, hey, if I were you, I would feel the exact same way. Because you would. If you were them, you would feel the same way. So it's okay to say, hey, if I were you, Lori, I'd feel the same way. I totally understand where you're coming from. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's the other piece of this, being able to connect with people. So to connect with them, we need to be repeating and affirming, and we've got to be empathizing. So looking for that chance to validate them of, hey, if I were you, I would feel that way too. Man, that's got to be frustrating. I'm sure that's annoying, getting phone calls. Because the other thing, that the people that are calling expireds and for sale by owners, they'll start calling at like 6:30 in the morning. So people's phones are ringing at 6:30 in the morning. And so by the time you then call at 8, they're like, I'm so sick of hearing from you agents. My phone started ringing at 6:30 this morning. That's when you've got to now, and oh man, that's got to be annoying. 6:30 in the morning, getting wake up to agents trying to hound you to get your home sold. Yeah, it is annoying. But now all I'm doing is coming around and being, I'm on your side. They're bad, right? And by doing that, they then are like, yeah, they are horrible. Hey, well, so and then what I'm going to do, if we go back again to page 12 there again, is I'm going to use just another one of these skills in here of a transitional statement. So the transitional statement is, see, she's going on about, I hate how you guys agents are annoying, I'm sick of you, and I woke me up at 6:30 this morning making calls. Oh man, that's got to be so frustrating. So I'm empathizing with her. Yeah, that's got to be annoying and frustrating. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Man, next thing you know, they're going to be flying over your house and buying billboards trying to get your attention. And they're like, I know, I'm sick of it. And then you go, well, with that being said though, so if you were sell this home, where are you going to go next? Say, I'm going to use a transition of like, I'm interrupting, so it's kind of a two thing. It's a pattern interruption. I'm interrupting their pattern. If you go back to page 11, there's pattern interruptions. She's on this pattern of going. Then I'm going to do a pattern interruption of, hey, well, so let me ask you though, if you sold this home, where are you going to go next? So I'm going to empathize with her, and then I'm going to pattern interrupt, or I'll transition, to, hey, as important or as frustrating as that is, let me ask you. So does that make sense? All right. So we good on this, on the understanding the importance of if we want to get appointments here, we got to connect with the people. We good with that? Is it getting too hot in here?
No.
He's burning up.
I'm actually not burning up, but for whatever reason, it just feel when it gets warm, I feel like the energy goes. So I will in a minute. All right. So we got to connect, right? Have I driven that point home well? Okay. So then the next one, once we've connected, then we've got to create value, and they've got to see value in it. So really, what I was doing with Lori when I said, well, hey, so I did that level shift of, hey, so it sounds like really what you're most worried about is getting the most amount of money for your home, right? Yes. Then I'm going to create value. So I need to create some value with her by saying, well, so if there was a way, though, that you could use an agent and still net the most amount of money, meaning you could even net more than selling it on your own, would that be something you would want to know about? Well, see, all I'm doing is trying to create value. So actually, while I'm thinking about this, another great book for you guys to read is Question-Based Selling. And that one I think is, man, I'm doing horrible. I gotta quit affirming to myself that I can't remember these authors' names. Where's it at? Question-Based Selling. Oh, Thomas Freese. Freese. But question-based selling. Now, in what he calls it, so I'm saying it as you got to create value. He calls it they have to be curious. So another way you could think of it is we've got to connect and we got to make them curious, because they're not going to want to meet with you if they're not curious or unless you create value. Does that make sense? So I want to create value with them. So as part of these scripts and things, so to some extent, the other reason it's so important to get these scripts memorized and internalized is because what you need to be able to do is go deeper on some of the things. So like when I said, or I didn't say, but I was going to say, what methods are you using for marketing your home? And if she said, well, ads and signs. Oh, okay, you're doing ads and signs? Oh, good for you, that's great. Well, what other things are you doing? So now I'm kind of varying off the script. Well, what other things are you doing? Well, that's it. Well, have you considered how doing some target marketing might be a good thing for you? Well, so now what am I trying to do? I'm trying to create value or make her curious. Because if somebody said that to you, if you were put yourself there, you're a for sale by owner, and I said, so have you considered using target marketing as a way to find the buyer?
What's that?
Yeah, that's what they're gonna say. Which you're probably thinking that right now too. Like, what's that? What would target marketing be? So, see, I'm going to use things like that to try to create value. I'm looking for a way to create value with them of, hey, so, one of the things we might want to you should consider doing is target marketing. And they're going to go, what's that? Oh, well, hey, that's the very reason. Now watch what I'm going to do. Well, as soon as I can tell I've created value, I'm going to close. So I'll do it true. So, have you considered using target marketing as a way of getting your home sold?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, well, that's the very reason we should get together. Now, what works better for you, afternoons or evenings? See, now, boom, I got an appointment. So if you will create value or make them curious, you can then get the appointment. So you got to think of ways of creating value to them So what are some things that we could do? Now this depends on who we're talking. If I'm just out doing random knocking on doors, what kinds of things could I do that would create value? What could I talk to people about to create? So let's go back to that just listed script. How could I create value using that script? So I'll help you out with that. So if I said, how long have you lived at this address? And Trudy said, what? How long have you lived at this address?
5 years.
5 years, wow, that's great. Now what should I be, what does that tell me if she's lived there for 5 years? What have home prices done in 5 years?
Increase in value.
Yeah, so they've increased some value. So what would be something that maybe would create value for her to want to talk to me or to make her curious?
To capture her equity.
Yeah. So maybe I just say, oh, so 5 years, oh, that's great. Well, so have you had any thoughts of what your home may be worth in today's market?
Not well.
So that's where I'm if she says yes, then great. I may be able to now create some value by saying, hey, one of the things that I do for my clients is I'll create a market analysis for them to help them know what their home is worth. Or let me show you another way of doing it. So you lived there for 5 years. Well, are you curious at all of what's going on in the neighborhood, real estate wise? Have you had a chance to sit down and talk to anybody about what's going on in the market?
No, not really.
No, okay. Well, one of the things that I provide for my clients is that I just send them, I do a market report and just send them to them, hey, here's what's going on in your neighborhood of the homes that are for sale. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Sure.
Okay, well let me get your information and I will get that set up for you. So, one of the things that I would recommend that we do is do like a thorough market analysis on your home to begin with. So I've got some time tomorrow afternoon around 4. Would that work for you for me to come by, just take a look at the home and then I'll put that together for you?
Yeah, that would work.
Okay, so can you see, like, I'm just creating value, then I'm gonna close for the appointment. So when you're talking to people, you've gotta just figure out, like, how can I create value? So here's probably the best way for you to get good at doing this, is when you are prospecting, after every call that you do, stop and ask yourself, did I connect? Did I create value? And did I close? Here's what I will tell you. If you do those 3 things, you'll get an appointment. So every time you don't get an appointment, you should stop and say, okay, what could have I done to connect better? What could have I done to create value? Was there something? Now that's the part where I was telling you when Shirley and I would get together and role play, I would try to figure out, somebody said this, how could I create value for that? And you just gotta try to think through, okay, and maybe even ask somebody else, like, how can I create value in this scenario? And then you come up with a way so that the next time you come across it, you know how to create the value that then you can close. Does that make sense? All right. Questions? Nothing, huh? Okay.
That just means you're doing a good job.
Is that what it is? I'm either doing a good job or it's, I've lost you so, you guys are so far lost.
No,
Okay,
this is
good.
so awesome.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, so then the last one is close. Now, there's only 5 ways in the English language that you can close, okay? There's only 5 ways you can ask for an appointment. So I'm gonna give you those, then we're gonna talk a little bit more about them. But there's only 5 ways in the English language that you can ask for an appointment. And then this is what they are. What time? Which time? How soon? And where? Oh, and when, sorry. What time, which time, how soon, where, and when? So what time, which time, how soon, where, and when? Now I'm going to give you an exact example of a few of these, but first let me show you. Here's part of the problem is, now remember yesterday we talked about mindset, and we were even today, we said a little bit about mindset. And you got to believe that you're the best agent for them, you're going to be able to help them. Well, part of this mindset is recognizing and believing you've got to just assume the close. You got to assume people are going to want to meet with you. We can't assume they're not going to want to meet with you. In fact, Darren Hardy, which, do you guys know who Darren Hardy is? He was the editor of Success Magazine. He's out and just does speaking and stuff, kind of like a Tony Robbins or something. But he lives in San Diego. But one of the I'll see if I can find the video and show it to you guys later. But he says you should be an inverse paranoid, meaning like you should assume everybody wants to meet with you, rather than assuming nobody wants to. Assume everybody wants to. So when it comes to closing, you've got to assume that they want to close with, that they want to meet with you. Now, how I can tell if somebody assumes that or not is by the language that they use. So now remember, we talked about here, we're going to get a lot more into this later, but about words. The way you can tell, well, let me back up, let me give it to you. Our assumptions determine our behaviors. In fact, that's something I would put into your notes. Your assumptions determine your behaviors. If you assume something is so, you will behave according to that assumption. Now remember yesterday I was telling you that 90% of who you are is unconscious? You have a whole bunch of unconscious assumptions. You've got things that you assume, but they're at an unconscious level, so you're not even conscious that you're assuming that. Okay? So our assumptions will determine our behavior. If you assume that somebody wants to meet with you, your behavior will show that. And the first level, so this is the key piece. So our assumptions determine our behaviors. And the first level that we have to figure out what somebody's assumptions are is in their language. So said differently, is the words that they use. So we all have these unconscious assumptions that are buried in our subconscious. So we're not aware of them. But the first way that we become aware of them is in our language, the words that we use. Now, I'll show you what I mean. If I said to you, well, watch. Let's do this. I'll do this exercise. So the words that we use are the first manifestation of what our assumptions are. So we all have these unconscious assumptions. And unfortunately, that's a lot of what holds us back from our success too, by the way. But the first level that we have to know what those assumptions are is the words that we use. Now watch what I mean. So Carminda, why don't you give me some money?
I don't have it.
Okay. Trudy, why don't you give me some money?
Why would I?
I don't know. Why don't you give me some money?
Because I don't want to.
Okay, why don't you give me some money?
I don't want to.
Okay, why don't you give me some money?
What have you done for the money?
Well, I'm hoping I'm providing some money. Alright, so why don't you give me some money?
Don't have any.
Okay, and why don't you give me some money?
You didn't ask for it.
Yeah, thank you. Now notice, what was my assumption?
That you were going to get money.
Was my assumption that I was going to get money or that I wasn't? Because let me ask it again. Now this is where, from this point on, start to really pay attention to the words. Why don't you give me some money? What am I saying, Jerry?
You're assuming you're not gonna get it because you're asking.
My assumption is I'm not going to get it. How do we know? Because I said, why don't you give me some money? I'm asking her why she's not going to give me money. And what did she give me?
No money.
Yeah, she didn't give me money. What did she give me? Remember yesterday I said that, shall we play it on Tony, the trick I played on you guys yesterday? So, okay, Tony. If I want to know what's going on a mile down the road, am I better to ask a giraffe or a turtle?
A turtle.
Why?
I have no idea.
He's like, he just is like, I'm not going to fall for your trap and say the giraffe, right? No, the truth is, why did you not say I don't talk to animals? Because then I don't expect them to answer me.
Because you only gave me two choices.
That's right. See, what happens is our brain responds to the question that it's asked. So what question did I ask here?
Why don't?
Why don't you give me some money? And what did she tell me? Why she wasn't going to give me money. Now, watch how subtle this is. We're prospecting. Hey, I think I might know somebody that wants to buy your home. Why don't we get together?
Why would I?
Yeah, see, notice I asked her why we weren't going to get together. Why don't we get together? And she's going to tell me why we're not going to get together then. See, we sabotage ourselves. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? We sabotage ourselves. So, hey, why don't we get together? Well, because I don't want to. I don't see any value in it, whatever. I mean, when you ask that way, you're going to get that response. The words that we use reveal what our unconscious assumptions. What's my assumption? If I say, why don't we get together? What is my assumption?
She's gonna say no.
That we're not going to get together. So just give me the reason why. Does that make sense? You following me, or did I lose you?
Oh, no, I'm following you, but I follow you 100%, but it's like, it's so deep, like, how do we know this? How do we know this and use it daily in our language?
Right, that's why we're doing what we're doing, is so that because here's what's going to happen now. Remember yesterday I told you your thinking is out of sync with reality by a half a second? What's going to happen is you'll be prospecting and you're going to find yourself going, hey, so why don't we, and then right as you're saying it, you're going to go, oh.
Okay, so reframe that. How do you say that?
I have to state one of these. What time, which time, how soon, when, and where. Or I did it backwards, where and when. But what time. So if my assumption is, watch this. We're going to go to a movie.
Oh, yeah?
Okay? Yeah, let's go right now. So let's assume we're friends and we've made plans like, hey, this weekend let's go to a movie.
Okay.
So we've just said, hey, sometime this weekend let's go to a movie. So now it's Saturday morning and you're trying to make your plans for the weekend. And you call me. What are you going to say to me?
Russ,
Yeah.
did you say you were gonna go to the movie?
Yeah.
Okay, when would that be?
Oh, now notice, what did she say?
When?
See, our assumption was we were going to go to a movie. So the only question then is, what time are we going? Which time are we going to go? Are we going to go? How soon are we going to go? Where are we going to go? Really, where is more about meeting, but when are we going to go? Notice, when your assumption is we're going to the movie, she wouldn't call me and say, hey Russ, why don't we go to a movie? We already decided we're going to a movie. So she wouldn't call me and say, hey, why don't we go to a movie? Right? See, our assumptions sabotage us all the time. And the first level that you have, so the first level you have to figure out your own unconscious assumptions is the words that you use. The first level I have to figure out your unconscious assumptions is the words you use. So watch this. How about this one? So, Carmen, can we get together and talk more about your home? Now, let's analyze the words. Can we get together? What is that asking? Analyze really at the core basic level. If you knew nothing about whatever, and you were analyzing language, and you heard somebody say, can we get together? What is it really asking?
You're not confident, you're giving her, I I don't know, like it's a yes or no answer.
Okay, it's yes or no, but what am I asking though? Like, analyze the question. Can we get together? What is
Maybe
it?
say the word can, is it possible to get?
Yeah, say it again.
Are you able, or is it possible?
Is it possible? When you say to somebody, can we get together, you're really asking, is it possible to get together? And what's the answer?
No.
Well, no, is it possible?
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, so the question when I say, can we get together, is really asking, is it possible for us to get together? And what's the answer? Is it possible?
Maybe.
Well, no, it's possible. It is possible. The only question is,
When?
what time, which time, how soon, when, and where. Does that make sense? So when you say to somebody, can we get together, is again a manifestation of your unconscious assumption that you're probably not going to get together.
But you have to ask, you can't just make somebody.
Well, can you say
make an
which
appointment.
Yeah, but the way that I want to ask is what time, which time, how soon, when, and where.
So they go, what time do you want to get together?
Yeah, what time do you want to get together so we can talk more about that?
Okay, so you create the value, and once you've got them interested in your value, you say.
Then you're going to say, yes. Now, and let me give you another way of doing it too, is, and this one's a good one to write down. I don't think it's anywhere.
So basically, you're cutting to the chase, and you're skipping over the can we,
That's right.
would you.
Yes, because, oh yeah, thank you, let's do that one. Kermit, would you like to get together? Now let's analyze what I'm asking. What is that? What is the question really asking? Would you like to get together? What am I asking her?
If she wants to get together.
If she would like. I'm asking, would you like it if we got together? Does that matter if she would like it? Because she might not like it, meaning like, you go to the dentist, do you like to go to the dentist?
No.
Well, no, but you need to go. So it's not a matter of would you like to, and same with real estate. There might be a scenario of she might not like to meet with me because her house is in foreclosure, but she needs to. So the would you like is not asking for an appointment, it's asking if you would like it. Well, it doesn't matter if she'd like it because she might need it. Does that make sense? So that's where, when we say, is there a time we can get together? What is that really asking? Is there a time we could get together? That's back to, is it possible?
Yeah.
And is it possible?
Yes.
So now that we all know it's possible, we don't ever have to say that again, right? We can just say, because the only question is, what time are we going to get together? Which time are we going to get together? How soon? When? Or where?
So you just cut to the chase.
Yeah, it's just assume that they want to meet with you. That's where our assumptions determine our behaviors. So if I assume that they want to meet with me, I would never ask, would you like to? Because I already assume they want to meet with me. So I assume that they are, and then I'm going to go with it. Now, so I'm going to give you another version of this one, of the which time. That is probably the best one. So, and I used it with Lori when we were talking on the for sale by owner. So I'm going to just redo it so I can see. So when I said, so hey, if there was a way that you could net more money by you paying an agent than doing it on your own, would you want to know about it?
Yes.
So that's the very reason. So then that's the segue into it. Hey, that's the very reason we need to get together. Now, which works better for you, afternoons or evenings? See, now that is just, if I say to her, that's the very reason we need to get together. So the nice thing is, when you're doing this and somebody says that this one, that's the very reason we should get together, is, let's say with a for sale by owner that I'm talking with about, I don't know, doesn't matter. We're talking about getting your home sold, or you getting your home sold, you're a for sale by owner. And you say to me, well, I just don't see any value of meeting with an agent. So say that.
I don't see any value of getting an agent to sell my home.
You know, that's the very reason we need to get together, is so that I can show you, because there are a number of things that would help you in getting your home sold. Now, which works better for you, afternoons or evenings? See, Like, it almost doesn't matter what they say. They could say, well, yeah, I don't understand why meeting with you would make any sense because the sky is blue. Oh, the sky is blue? You know, that's the very reason, Laura, we ought to get together, is because, now, there was a study done about the word because. Now, so by you saying that's the very reason we should get together because, and then whatever. Now, what works better? Afternoon or evening? Okay? So that's the very reason we should get together. So I just wrote it down, you guys just watched me? I'm just kidding. Or did you guys write it down? No comment? See, it's too hot in here. Okay. That's the very reason we should get together because, and then you're gonna fill in the blank. Now, so here's why that is. The word because. There was a study done, and I'm drawing a blank on where this was at now, but there was a study done on the word because. That if you went up to, what they did is it was in an office, and they were having people walk up to somebody who was at the copier and say, hey Ed, can I cut in front of you and make some copies real quick? And if I said that, most of the time people are like, no, you can wait. But if the person said, hey Ed, can I cut in front of you to get some copies because I need to get them done really fast? Like, it almost didn't matter what they said after the because. By adding the word because, all of a sudden people were willing. So like, meaning like, even if they just said, so, well, let me do it two different ways. If I said, hey Ed, can I cut in front of you on the copier? Because the boss told me if I don't have this to him in 5 minutes, I'm gonna get fired. Like, in that scenario, people are like, oh yeah, hurry, yeah, if it's for the boss, go for it. But what they found is if they came up and just said, hey Ed, can I cut in front of you because I need to get these done really quick. Just by saying because and then adding something after it, it almost didn't matter what they said because I just want to get done and go home. By doing that, people were more likely to, oh yeah, sure, yeah, that's fine, go ahead. So like, by saying because, so that's the very reason we should get together because I'm going to be able to show you why the sky is blue. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. But that's very reason we should get together because I'm going to show you how you'll net more money by using an agent. Now this now part is like, notice I put an exclamation point. When you do it and you say this, you want to say it like that. Now. Like you're giving it to them as a now. So, hey, that's the very reason we should get together because I'm going to show you how you'll net more money by using an agent. Now, what works best for you, afternoons or evenings? Like that now kind of is like you're telling, yeah, it's like now. Which works better for you, afternoons or evenings? Which is really just another version. What works better or which works better is the same. You know, what works better, afternoons or evenings, or which works better, afternoons or evenings. Now, so by saying, so hey, what works better for you, afternoons or evenings? It's the same thing as when I said to you, would you rather talk to a giraffe or a turtle? If you wanted to know what's going on a mile down the road. Well, he chose because I gave him two options. So same thing here. Now, what works better for you, afternoons or evenings? Well, I guess between the two, afternoons are better. Oh, okay, so afternoons are better. So with 3 or 5, or 1 or 3. I mean, so it's that same thing. I'm kind of leading them to this point I want to go to. So now, which works better, afternoons or evenings? Afternoons. Okay, so 1 or 3. Probably 3. Okay, so Thursday at 3? Yeah, that's great. Make sense?
Because they answer the question at hand, the question that's right in their face.
That's right.
And that's why later, only, you said the statistics are 50% keep their appointments, because now they have time to think about it.
That's right. Yeah, so when you get good at doing this, you'll be able to get appointments with people that maybe later on they decide not to, and or you, like I said, decide not to. Because sometimes they'll say yes, and then you just figure, yeah, I don't know, because it's not worth it. For whatever, I mean, maybe I get the appointment with Lori, and then when I go to them, the pre-qualifying in here, and I start asking questions, I find out there's no motivation. She wants to move to Arizona, but her price is too high. She can only afford it if it's this or that, and now you got to be careful with that, which is why I said for you as a new newer agent, go anyway. Go anyway, because the problem is sometimes they'll be like, yeah, we're not that, you know, if it sells great, if it doesn't, oh well, it doesn't matter. And so then you're like, oh, there's no motivation. I did this. There's no motivation, I'm not going. And then like 2 weeks later, their house is sold at a price that was reasonable and they're gone. And you're like, oh, like I missed it. So recognize that people will lie to you and or they'll downplay it. Oh, yeah, we're only going to sell if we have to, if we can get our price. And then you find out as you get there and talk to them that no, they really do have to sell. They just downplayed it because they don't want you to think they have to sell. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Okay, good. We're doing good. So any questions on this? So when you're prospecting, we got to get them to connect, we got to create value, and we got to close, okay? And then on the closing, there's only 5 ways in the English language. If you don't say it one of these ways, so you've got to just assume the close. So if I'm talking to Lori about for sale by owner, hey, I've got some strategies and things that could probably net you more money by using an agent. So what works better for you, afternoons or evenings? So notice I'm not saying, so is that something that, yeah, you'd be interested in? No, not really. I mean, like, we don't want to give them that chance. Even though I still fall for it and I'll do that, meaning I'll sometimes, hey, would you like to get together? Or whatever, like you're still going to do that. But when you do it, catch yourself and, hey, no, sorry, but which works better for you, afternoon or evening? So by giving people the choice, it's like the giraffe or you want to talk to the giraffe or the turtle? Like, well, probably the giraffe because they have a longer neck, they can see further down the road. Okay. Like, people tend to answer the question in front of them. So which works better for you, afternoons or evenings? Okay? All right, so we're good on this?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go to the next piece of this then. So kind of my thinking is I'm going to finish up a few things on this, and then in this afternoon we're going to jump into like how do you do an open house the right way. And I'm going to teach you how to get 60% appointments at open houses. Okay? All right, so but first, there's one other piece to this that I want to take you through. So in terms of prospecting, think of it this way. Think of it as there's 2 parallel tracks. So we want to be prospecting on 2 parallel tracks. We're looking for now business, but at the same time, I want to look for future business. See, now, most agents, the problem that I see with most agents is when they prospect, they get so focused on now business. Now, I understand why they do that. In fact, I got an email in the last couple of weeks from an agent that's fairly new, just a couple months in the business, and she's like, hey, I think I might need to go do something else because I thought I was going to have business by now, and I'm used to a higher income, and for me, like, I get it. I understand why we focus so much on the now business because we got to get paid. We need money. We got to, do that. But here's the problem, is when you're focused solely on the now business, what happens is that the client picks up that you have commission breath. They can smell on your breath that all you care about is getting a commission check. And when they do that, they don't want to deal with you. They don't feel like they don't feel safe, they don't feel like they can trust you, and so because of that, they'll run from you. Versus, the other way I like to think of this is when we're prospecting, think of it this way. Another way I like to say it is a hunter versus a farmer. Like, they both provide food, right? But the hunter, is going out for the kill right now. Like, they're going out to get it. But the farmer's like, hey, I know I'm going to have to plant some seeds, and I'm going to have to pull the weeds and all that kind of stuff. Now, one of the things that, and I'm assuming you went to Superstar Retreat based on some of the comments yesterday, right? You will typically hear Mike Ferry will say, if they're not going to do something in the next 7 to 10 days, then move on. I've also heard him say that the length of time you will keep a lead is based on how much production you're doing. Meaning if you're a new agent and you don't have a lot of business, you're going to have to keep leads longer than a top producer. The top producer can do that, hey, 7 to 10 days, I'm moving on to the next lead. If they're not going to buy or sell in the next 7 to 10, I'm moving on. Which is fine when you're at that level of producing, but until you get there, you need to look at now and future. So you want to be the hunter, but as soon as you can tell or you get the feeling that they're not as ready or prepared, then you want to kick into this farmer mode of, hey, like in fact, write this down. This is a great thing to use when you're prospecting. When you feel like somebody's like, oh yeah, no, we're like they feel like you're pushing them, then you can just, I work with my clients at their pace. So that's a great way to, a disarming way of dealing with people is, hey, I work with my clients at their pace. So like as soon as they're like, hey, no, we're not that serious about buying a home. Oh, hey, that's great. Like that's where I move from being the hunter to the farmer is, oh, hey, no worries. Like I work with my clients at their pace. So, whatever time frame you're looking in, this totally works for me. Does that make sense? So we want to prospect on 2 parallel tracks. So said another way, I want to be looking for this now business, but at the same time, let me ask it this way. Who plans on being in business a year from now in real estate? Okay, good. Everybody raise their hand, because if you hadn't, I'd be like, But if you plan on being in real estate a year from now, and you come across somebody who says, yeah, we're probably not going to do anything for a year, why would you want to throw their name away? I mean, does that make sense? Like, if I plan on being in business a year from now, I should just have a system. So this is tied back to where we started yesterday on this. I should have some systems and strategies and tools in place that allow me to keep that lead and work them so that in a year when they're ready, I don't have to go out and be, remember I said this business should get easier every year? This is how. If you're prospecting on 2 parallel tracks, when I come across that person, now, I'm all on board. If they're saying I'm not going to buy a house for 6 months, that I'm not going to go out and show them homes tomorrow. Like that, I'm all on board with that. But why not have them sitting in the wings somehow, and I'm going to teach you how later, have them sitting in the wings somehow that when that future time shows up, I've already got this pipeline now of people that are ready to go and buy houses or sell houses. Does that make sense? So we want to prospect on 2 parallel tracks. So I'm looking for the now business, but I'm also going to look for future. Said another way, I have a primary objective. My primary objective is what? See if you guys have learned anything today. What's my primary objective in prospecting? To get an appointment, right? Which would be now. So that's another way of thinking of this. And the way that I get now business is through appointments. But if I can't get an appointment, so if I'm talking to Carminda and she's like, no, we don't want to do anything for, yes, we want to sell our house, but not for a year. We're just not ready yet. Like, I wouldn't want to be like, all right, well, good luck. Move on. I want to say, okay, great. I've got now, and I don't know if we want to call it a lead or what we want to call it down here, but think of it as appointments are the now business, and the lead would be something for the future. So I want to be the hunter to begin with. So when I'm prospecting, my primary objective is getting appointments. But if I can't get an appointment, so I haven't shown you this piece yet. So let me role play this one now. So just tell me, we might do something down the road. Like you're not going to do anything right away, but we might down the road. So just approach that way, okay? So knock knock.
Yes?
Hi, my name's Russ with Century 21. We listed your neighbor's home down the street here, the Jones. Do you know them? You guys know that stuff, right? So who do you know that wants to move into the area?
No one at the moment.
Oh, okay. So, and when do you guys plan on moving?
No, not in the near future.
Not in the near future. Okay, well, so how long have you lived here?
10 years.
10 years. Wow, that's great. So where'd you move from? I'm shorthanding this, obviously, right?
Hawaii.
Hawaii? Really?
Yeah.
That's exciting. What brought you here?
Job.
Oh, really? What do you do?
Purchasing professional.
Oh, wow, that's exciting. For what company? Now, notice I've just left the script. I'm going deeper into this, which is okay. Okay.
Westco Aircraft.
Westco Aircraft. Oh, well, that's awesome. Well, hey, well, let me ask you, Carmen, if you ever were to move, where would you go next? Have someplace.
Simi Valley.
Oh, Simi, really? So when would that be? Now, say in a year.
I really don't know.
No, say like maybe in a year or two.
Maybe in a year or two.
Oh, in a year or two. Okay, great. Well, so now at this point, I can see I'm probably not getting an appointment. Now, I could go into how are you using real estate to build your financial future. That could be one way I could do it. But let's say that I've tried all those things and it's not working, but I can see that she's saying, yeah, we probably will in about a year or two. Then I'm going to go, hey, so at the end, before I leave, I'm now kicking into this future mode, okay? So So I'm gonna say, hey, so Carmen, I actually have a select group of people that I stay in touch with. I just keep them updated on the market, let them know what's going on in their area. I'd love to add you to that list. Would that be okay?
I guess so.
Okay, great. So what I will do is I'll just send you an email that's just periodically of, hey, here's the homes that are for sale, so you can keep an eye on their prices. And then I'll just touch base with you from time to time to see if you have any questions.
Okay, that
So
sounds good.
let me get your contact information. So I get her email address, her phone number, all that. Now, I'm gonna go back and plug her into Zap, and I'll show you this on Thursday. In Zap, I'm gonna plug her into Zap, and I'm gonna put her on the watched home update, and then now it's gonna start sending her watched homes. And then I'll just touch base with her every few months and, hey, just wanted to see how things are going. Are you getting that email? Did you have any questions? Anything I can help you? Is the plan still, in a year or two? Yep, okay, great. And then I'm just gonna stay in touch, stay in touch, stay in touch. Does that make sense? So I wanna prospect on 2 parallel tracks. I'm looking for the now business, but if I don't get it, then I wanna capture her to add to my SOI so that when she does mature, when she does incubate, whatever, all of a sudden it pops through and, hey, calls me up and goes, hey, Russ, we need to sell our house. Come talk to us. Does that make sense? Okay. So keep that piece in mind. The next piece of this. And this is what I call the buyer or the seller cycle. So it's the buyer/seller cycle. Now there's 3 phases to this. So part of why I bring this up to you is will make more sense even once we get through this. This buyer and seller cycle. Now in terms of this buyer and seller cycle, there are 3 phases that people go through before they ever buy or sell a home. So the first phase in this process is what we would call percolation. What does percolation mean? When you hear the word percolate, what do you think of?
Dripping down.
Okay, good.
They're just thinking. They're
Perfect.
debating in their head.
Brewing, yeah, you think of coffee brewing, so, yeah, and they're just thinking about it. So you are exactly right. On this buyer and seller cycle, the first phase of that is what's called percolation. So in the percolation phase, they're just thinking about it. So somebody shows up to an open house and they walk in, what do they usually say to you? We're just looking. Now, which is another way for them to say, really, potentially, that they're in the percolation phase. Now, here's the thing. Somebody who is in the percolation phase is not aware that they are in the process of buying a home or selling their home. During this percolation phase, they're not consciously aware what's going on. So when they show up and say, I'm just a curious neighbor, that's really what they believe that they are. Meaning, it's not like they're trying to hide something from you. They are just curious. So when you said that they're thinking about it. Let me give you the example. This is the best way I can explain it to you. So the home that I live in now, so let me back up to the story. The story I told you earlier today about going through this process. The piece that I didn't finish on that was that next week, I said, okay, I won't go home until I set an appointment. So what happened then is I went home, I told my wife, hey, I'm not coming home tomorrow until I get an appointment. And she's like, well then you better get up and get to the office early because we got da-da-da-da-da, and you better get your appointment. So I went to the office, which, by the way, if that was you, if I told you tomorrow you can't go home till you get an appointment, what time would you start your day working tomorrow? Yeah, early. See, remember I said before I would show up to the office around 9:30? That next day I was 7:30, man. I was there because I was scared. I'm like, I gotta get an appointment. Now, the other thing is, who would you call first to get an appointment? I mentioned this yesterday. That's a good one. And who else? Leads. Remember all the leads that I had? So I went through all my leads. So to finish the story, I had my appointment by noon every single day. So I was pretty much done working by noon every day because I would get my appointment. So after that week was up and I went back to meet with that guy and he was like, hey, how'd it go? And I was like, man, I got 5 appointments this last week. It was awesome. And he's like, hey, are you gonna keep doing it? And I was like, yeah. From then on, that was my only mission every day was, I gotta get an appointment. I don't go home until I get an appointment. And so, because of that, look at that's the steepest part of the curve and how much money you make. Like, my income went up. So remember I told you that he said to me, what if there was a way you could prospect half as much and double your income? And I was like, sign me up, I'll do it. And then he said, go get an appointment every day. So I told you I was not really even close to 100,000. Well, the next year I had doubled my income to where now I was. And then the next year I doubled it again. And then the next year I didn't double it again, but I went up dramatically more. So and I didn't do anything except for get one new appointment every day. So now let me go back to this story about this percolation. So it's now been a couple of years since I did that, and my business is going really well. I mean, I'm doing really well in real estate. And I happened to have a guy that I had gone to high school with, we had bought and built houses in the same neighborhood. Not on purpose, but just like one day I'm like, what are you doing here? And he was like, oh, I bought a house over here. And I was like, oh, that's weird, me too. So we're talking, and a year after that, he had moved in or whatever. We're talking, and he says, hey, so when are you moving? And I was like, what? We're not moving. And the reason I said that is because I worked the neighborhood I lived in. I got to know the people that were in there really well. And so this was a starter home. And so a lot of the people were younger, just finishing college. They were getting better jobs and moving on. And so when he said that, I was like, why would I move? Like, I get a ton of listings out of this neighborhood. Like, I wouldn't move. Like, that would be like career suicide because like all of this business I'm getting here. So, but for whatever reason, it just stuck out to me when he was like, when are you moving? And I was like, what are you talking about? I would not move. Like, this is where all my business is coming from. Now, with that in mind though, like a few weeks later, it might have been a month, I don't know, but within a reasonable amount of time after that, I'm driving down, so where my house was, so in Salt Lake City, kind of the main, you got mountains on this side here, here's our mountains, and then we got the mountains on this side that I was telling you about, and then kind of down the middle is a freeway, that I-15, that runs through there. Well, so I lived over here, my house was like right here, and then there was this road that you'd have to go on, and then there's a little highway that comes through here, and then another main road right here. Well, the traffic right here was just always horrible. Like Ed was talking about how much you were sitting at the traffic light, like for Utah at least, probably not compared to here, but like you would sit at many lights along this before you got to this main highway here. Once you got past this highway, it would open up and you were fine. Well, so I'm driving from my house over here the one day along this road, and I'm just sitting there in the traffic waiting, like light after light after light, still sitting there. And I was like, if I ever move, so now remember, he had asked me, when are you going to be moving? So I think because of that, that planted a little bit of a seed in me. So I'm sitting here in this traffic and I'm like, I guess if I ever did move, I would make sure, this is called Bangerter Highway. I was like, I would live east of the Bangerter Highway. And then I drove off to work. That was it. But pause for a minute. I didn't know it at the time, but what I know now, I was percolating. I know, I'm so excited.
But was it because that guy planted a seed in you?
Well, and I don't know that it's 100% because he planted the seed, but I don't know that it wasn't because of that either. I just know, I remember sitting in the traffic here the one day and going, if I ever do move, it'll be east of Bangerter Highway. And then I went to work and then nothing. But here's what I know now. Looking back, percolation was happening. Now, so then, weeks, months, I don't know how long goes by, I'm driving along here, I get past the Bangerter Highway, and I notice this new construction, this new neighborhood being built. And I go, oh, wow, that's a nice, those look like some nice houses. And then I continued on to work. Percolation. So then I'm driving by with my wife one day, and I go, did you notice this new neighborhood that's being built? Now, in my mind, it's like I'm interested because I sell real estate. I have to know what's going on. And so I just remember I said, did you notice this neighborhood? And she's like, oh, no, I didn't. And I'm like, we should just drive down through it. So I pulled off the road, drove through the subdivision there, and I was like, wow, those are some nice looking houses, aren't they? Yeah. And then we went wherever we were going. Well, then, not long after that, I'm driving by and I notice, oh, they've got a model home. So I drive by and I look at the model home and I notice that too, inside the neighborhood, they've got this neighborhood park here. There's a clubhouse with a pool and stuff here, and tennis courts and basketball courts and all this stuff like right here. So I come and drive along this road and I notice all of that, and then I see over here the model home, and I'm like, oh, wow, there's a model home now. So I was like, I'm gonna have to, with my wife, we'll have to go look at the model home sometime. Now again, in my mind, it's just because I'm an agent. I need to know what's going on, which is another really percolation. So I get with my wife, we're driving somewhere the one day, and I'm like, hey, they've got a model home in there. I want to just show it to you. So I drive down, I'm like, look at this. It's got a park, this pool, basketball courts, tennis courts. Like, should we just go into the model home and just take a look? Now we walk into the model home, and guess what we say? We're just looking. And because I'm an agent, I added, like, I'm a real estate agent, I just wanted to get familiar with, the inventory of what's out there so I could talk to clients about it. Now, why am I saying that to her? Why are we saying we're just looking, and why am I saying, oh, I'm just an agent, just coming through to kind of see what's up? Yeah, we don't want to be bothered, because we don't think we're going to buy. So it's like, yeah, we're not really buying, so don't try to sell us a house. See, during this percolation phase, they don't know what's going on. See, I know that now. Now that I understand this process, I can look back and see how I was going through it. But at the time I'm going through it, if I wasn't an agent and you had come and knocked on my door and said, when do you plan on moving? I would have said, never. I'm never moving. Yet, here's what I'll tell you. Within a year of him asking me when I was going to move, I had moved. Even though, remember I said, I will never, that would be stupid. It would be like career suicide. All my business is coming out of here. I'm not doing that. Yet, we drive through here and I fall in love with this neighborhood. We walk into this model home and we're like, oh, could you imagine? It'd be so nice. And there's a cul-de-sac right here that backs up to, so here's the parking lot for the clubhouse and all that kind of stuff. And this lot right here is available. So we walk in, we're like, do you have any cul-de-sacs? And she's like, oh yeah, we've got the lot right here. And we're like, oh, that's cool. And then we left. All of this is percolation. They're just thinking about it. Like, so when somebody walks into the open house and says, we're just thinking about it, is really, you need to go, I get it, they're in percolation phase. Now, you don't say that to them, but you got to go, oh, okay, I get it. You're probably in the percolation phase. Now, so during this percolation phase, they're just thinking about it. It's little things like, well, part of why we say on this just list of script, if you were to move, where would you go next? To some extent, we might be planting a seed, or we're finding out if there's already been a seed that they've planted. So like, if you were to move, where would you go next?
San Francisco.
To San Francisco? Oh, that's awesome. So when would that be? See, I'm really just trying to figure out in this, where are they at? So that when they say, she said San Francisco, oh great, so when would that be? Oh, I don't know. When I retire. Oh, well, are you getting close to retirement? No. Okay, well then they may still just be here, who knows? But during percolation, they're just thinking about it.
Would you get their information though?
Absolutely, which is why I had this come here. Because just exactly what I just said to you. My friend said, when are you going to move? And I said, I would be dumb, I'm never moving. And a year later, I had moved. So does that make sense? Okay, now, so after information gathering, percolation is information gathering. So information gathering is the next step in this process. So they percolate on it, they just think about it. They say things like, well, if I were to move, I would want to have this in my house. If I were to move, this is where I'd want to go. It's just they're thinking about it. Information gathering is now, really, I didn't realize it, but the moment we were walking into this open house is really probably where we are starting into information gathering. Now, here's what I will tell you. This is not like a thick line. It's blurred. Like, meaning when somebody goes from percolation to information gathering, they don't even know they're doing it. Like, meaning they walk into an open house and they're saying, We're just curious to see what was going on. Well, really, what's going on is they're now starting to move into this, we're starting to gather information to see if it makes sense and if we can do it, can we afford it, all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? So that's what information gathering is. And then the final piece of this is what we call the active phase. Active is when they know now they are serious about doing it. Like we're looking to find something to buy. Now, so when we talk about now and future, this is the people who are the now buyers and sellers, is they're in the active phase. The problem is, here's what goes on. The challenge is, prior to going to the active phase, they've been in information gathering. And during the information gathering is a lot of times when they figure out, here's the agent, the type of agent we want to work with or who we want to work with. And so that's why, let me say it a little differently. You guys vote. Who do you think, let's call this 1, 2, or 3, which one do you think is hardest to get an appointment with? Somebody in the active phase, information gathering, or percolation? So if you think it's percolation, raise your hand.
What's your question again?
Okay, so if you were going to try to get an appointment with somebody in either percolation, information gathering, or active, who do you think's the hardest to get an appointment with? Somebody in percolation? So if you think percolation, raise your hand. Okay? So if you think information gathering, if you think active. Okay, so we got 2 here, 1 here, and everybody else there. Now tell me why. So defend your position. Why is percolation the hardest?
Well, when I've knocked on doors and I've gotten a lot of percolators, they're just like, we're just really thinking about this, we're not sure what direction we're going, and I always hear we're a year out. So that tells me they're percolating, and so, and I have gathered their information, but I can tell that they're undecided. And so I just feel like you know, it takes a lot of work to capture that you're gonna be their agent.
Okay, good. Anyone else on percolation? Why do you think that's the hardest?
Because they don't think they need you.
Okay, good. What about information gathering?
I think that would be a good time.
Well, but why do you think they're the hardest to get an appointment?
I would, because they're gathering information, so this means if you hadn't spoke to them at percolation, then they have other people that you're competing with?
Okay, good. So what about the actives? Why do you think they're the hardest?
Because they've already gotten the information, so by the time they're looking to buy a house, maybe they've already.
Yeah, so that's what I'll tell you. That is correct. This is the hardest one to get an appointment with because they've already made decisions and they may already have an agent and you're not it. So here's what I'll tell you. You can get appointments with these people, but you're gonna have to ask 3 to 5 times to get an appointment. You're gonna have to ask, you're gonna have to close 3 to 5 times. You're gonna have to say this type of stuff 3 to 5 times to get an appointment with somebody in the active phase. Typically, these people they'll meet with you, and what you were saying is right, meaning like they're kind of like, well, I'm not sure we're ready yet to be meeting with people, but if you push, they'll also go, all right, if you want to waste your time, that's fine, you can come out, but you're wasting your time because we're not ready. So, make sense? So, okay, so you got to have the best skills to get these people. Now, the other trick to getting these people is treating them more like, hey, I work with my clients at their pace, so that's fine. Like, I know if you're not ready yet, that's totally cool, I get it. But I just might have some good information that could help you make a good decision when you are ready. So what works better for you, afternoon or evening? And you're gonna have to ask 3 to 5 times to do it. Okay, so here's what happened. Let me finish the story. So we see this lot. While we're there too, now the other thing that happens, so I-15 is kind of a dividing line of like, there are some people that are like, I would never live west of I-15. It's kind of how people will look at it as like, oh, I would never live on the west side of I-15. And I grew up on the west side, like way out here by the mountains over here, and for me, I like it out there. Like, and part of what I like about it is there's some good neighborhoods that price-wise, you can get a really nice home for way less, and it's not, there are some bad areas, I'll give you that, but there are also some good areas out there, but there just kind of has this stigma of I would never live there. So we walk into the model home here, and we're asking about the lots and the people, and the agent sitting in the model home said this, she goes, you know, I've lived on the east side my whole entire life, and I would live out here. And at the time, I was like, oh, okay. But when my wife and I left, we were like, can you believe her? Like, oh, I've lived the east side my whole life. And we were kind of like, I mean, honestly, I was like, I'm not sure I want to live in that. If that's the type, this is what, I'm just being honest. This is what I was like, if that's the type of people that live there, I don't want to live in that neighborhood. Oh, because the other thing she said was this too. She's like, yeah, if you bought that lot, on this side of you is an OBGYN, on this side of you is a dentist, and then right across the street here is another OBGYN. And so we left, and the two things that resonated with me when we left, we had put money down on the lot, actually, by the way. So we put $500 down to hold that lot. And we left, and then as we talked about it, I was like, man, if it's like East Sider, we're better than everybody, I don't want to live in that neighborhood. And my wife's like, yeah, I'm with you. And I'm like, plus like an OBGYN and a dentist, I'm like, now I'm picturing at that time, like, in my mind, an OBGYN and a dentist are old. Like, I'm picturing like, we're gonna live by these old people and like, we don't fit in with doctors and dentists. I was like, well, that's not who we are. And so we called up and we're like, hey, just tear up our check, never mind, we don't wanna do it. So we canceled. Then, a couple of months go by and I'm just constant, like every time I would drive down to work, I would do the sidetrack through here and be like, oh, but I love the pool and all that. So like a few months go by and I talked to my wife, I'm like, I really like that neighborhood though. Like what sealed it for us is I said, let's just drive through it a couple times and let's go on a Saturday and see, like, how old are the people that live there? So we drove in, and on this side there's another cul-de-sac here. And so we drove in and we drove through this cul-de-sac. These houses were still being built, so we couldn't really see anybody. But in here, all these houses were built. We drive in here and I see a guy about my age with two little kids out mowing his lawn. So we stopped and we're like, hey, do you like this neighborhood? Is it kid friendly? And he's like, well, I mean, it's just kind of getting built, but it seems like the people moving in are, and we left and I was like, well, that's the type of people that live there and they are younger, they're our age, we should look at it. So we went back to the model home and she said, nope, that lot's sold, but I can give you this one. And I was like, oh, I hate the corner lot. I don't want to be on the corner. Because we were on a corner lot in our first house in a cul-de-sac and I hated it because like, when it snows, I have sidewalk all like this that I gotta go shovel all that, and I was like, and north facing so that it doesn't melt because the house shadow goes to, anyway. First world problems, right? But so I'm like, I don't really want that one, but I really like, there was no other cul-de-sac, so anyway, we bought and we live there now. For the last 18 years we've been here. Now, when we moved in, the dentist is right here now, so he's here, and then you got the OBGYN and the OBGYN, both my age. Like they were just barely out of college and starting their practice. So we did fit in with them, just meaning like age-wise, and our kid, we had a lot of the same age kids and everything. So it worked out really good for us. But here's the biggest point of all this. When someone's in percolation, they don't know it. They don't realize they are starting a process that's going to lead to them buying a house. And it doesn't matter what you say or do, you're not going to convince them otherwise. We just were curious. We just thought, now let me give you another example. Let's do this for the no. So, husband and wife, in the car, drive by an open house, and the wife's like, hey, we should stop in and look at that open house. And he's like, I thought we were just going to Home Depot. And she's like, well, we are going to Home Depot, but like maybe we'll get some ideas that we could do on fixing up our house. And he's like, I don't want to fix up the house. Like that's, who cares about fixing up the house? Just stop in, would you? So they pulls over, they get out, they walk into the model home. What do they say? We're just looking to get some decorating ideas. Now, the reason she's wanting to get decorating ideas and the reason they're going to Home Depot is she just got done meeting with her divorce attorney the day before. She hasn't told him yet. We're getting divorced and we're going to be selling our house, and the reason we're going to Home Depot is to buy some stuff to get the house ready to sell. She just hasn't told him yet. So they walk in and she's like, I don't even know why we're here. And she's like, oh, we're just getting some decorating ideas. So my point is, when they walk in saying that, it's possible that she's decided they're getting divorced and they're selling the house. He just hasn't been told that yet. So when they come in and he's like, I don't even know why we're here. Like, but you get my point though, right? Like sometimes during this she really was already in information gathering. He was not even here yet. But my point is, this is the process people will go through. And so because of what I told you yesterday, there's an 82% chance that the people walking into an open house will do something real estate related within a year. The reason they walk in saying, I'm just looking, is because they're in the percolation phase or just barely moving into information gathering, but they don't know, this is not a hard line. It's blurred. They don't realize they're doing this until they're clear down here somewhere. Which is a lot of times why too, you'll get an appointment with somebody and then they'll cancel on you, is because of what we did here. It was kind of like, what are we doing? Like, this is dumb to be moving. We don't need, because at the time, my wife was, when we built this house, she was pregnant with our second. I had one son and she was pregnant with our second. Like, I was like, we don't need, the size of this house is a lot bigger than the first one we had was fine. It was a starter home, but it was fine. With 2 kids, it's fine. Like, it was plenty of room. So, we come here and we're like, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, this is dumb. Like, during this percolation and information gathering phase, we're buying now or not. But, well, maybe we should. Maybe, like, you gotta know that's part of why you'll get an appointment and then they cancel, is because, like with us, we put the money down and then we canceled. Because we were like, what are we doing? Like, we're not gonna fit in, and we don't need that much house. It doesn't make sense to go and do that. Why are we doing it? So we call and you cancel. But you give them a few months for this to percolate a little bit more on it, and then we were like, okay, we do want it. And I still to this day wish I had that lot versus this one, just because it was a corner. But the point being, like, once people start down this process, they usually continue through it. Even though they may have some, I don't know, like, so it's not going to be uncommon, especially at an open house, to get an appointment with people that then they cancel on you. Because they start to feel like, well, we're moving way too fast. This is faster than, which is really just them saying, they're moved to information gathering, and then all of a sudden they're jumping to active, and they're going, well, we need to back up to be more still. I mean, they don't consciously do this, but that's what's going on. Is we're not ready to be active, we got to get back to information gathering. So, make sense? Questions?
I think you're percolating, because now you want that other lot.
Actually, here's the funny thing. So, 2 years ago, so my oldest now, he's now married, but he was 2 years ago 20, and I was kind of like, he's going to be leaving. My second son is 18, just graduated high school, so I'm like, he's leaving. And so I'm like, wait a minute, and we have only one other son, he was 10. But I'm like, there's a lot of house for just one kid. So 2 years ago, I was kind of like, maybe we ought to look at getting a different house. But we did go look at a couple houses, but then my wife just said, I just want to remodel the kitchen. So we just remodeled the kitchen, and it's been 2 years that we remodeled the kitchen. But I gotta be honest, for me, it's not about this lot as much as I'm more like, I honestly do think I am in this percolation phase right now, because I'm kind of like, in a month, my second son is moving out. So I'm like, okay, my first son got married last month, the second one's leaving. I'm like, it's a lot of house, and actually I'm okay with the square footage, but it's like, the layout of it I don't dig, right? I'm like, for our current family, like, that layout doesn't, like, I really do think I am in this percolation phase. I'm not sure that, honestly, I don't know where it'll go from there, but I would not be surprised if a year from now I'm saying, or within the year, of saying to my wife, like, maybe let's, but the problem is, I love this neighborhood. So if I did move, I want a house in this neighborhood, because it is so convenient to to the freeway and everything. It's like, so to some extent, I think you're right. I think I am percolating, but
I just need to close you now.
you just gotta close it. You got it.
So if I'm driving to Home Depot with my husband, and he says to stop at that model, that means he wants to divorce.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, when he says that, you'd be like, dude, have you been meeting with a divorce attorney?
Oh my goodness.
I told him that tonight.
Yeah, do that. Next time he says, I'm not going to Home Depot. All right, should we stop for lunch? Yeah, it's 12:06. Okay, so here's the thing. So let's stop for lunch. We'll do an hour and 15 again. So we'll be back at 1:20. And then what we're gonna do, we're gonna spend the rest of the afternoon talking about, like, okay, we're gonna get into the details of an open house, because I want you guys, as you're doing open houses, to know, because I'm telling you, you can get appointments at 60%. You can get appointments with 60% of the people who come in if you will follow the process I'm gonna train you. Sound good? Okay, so be back 1:20.